if we can settle down here and we'll begin the meeting. Thank you. I would like to call to order the special April 14th Board of Supervisor meeting for East Whiteland Township. I'm the Chairman, Scott Lambert, and for everyone in the audience who has not seen many of the people here, I'd like to introduce everyone. To my immediate left is Township Manager Steve Brown, Supervisor Clinton Smith, Vice Chair Supervisor Peter Fixler, Solicitor Bernadette Kearney, Solicitor Mike Crotty, and some consultants sitting here in the front row. We have Dr. Carr Everbach, and we have Ed Van Arnstel, who is representing Aero Engineering. And Tony Finding as well. If we can stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like to ask Peter Fixler to read us the meeting rules.
Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. Very good. Thank you all for coming out this evening. Just want to start off with some first order meeting decorum rules. Priority will be given to East Whiteland Township residents, although the board chair can use his discretion for working outside that rule. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, although we'll again leave it up to the chair if he would like to allow for a longer comment session. Please, just all comments, be courteous and let everyone complete their speeches. This is an advisory board. This is a recorded meeting. We have some very serious things to deliberate upon.
Put your microphone closer, we can't hear you.
Thank you for that, I will. See, this is why we go through this at the beginning. I just want to say let's all be as courteous and possible. Let everyone finish their speeches, their questions, let them be answered in the manner in which they were asked. There will be very little tolerance for yelling, chanting, personal attacks, or other disruptive behavior. It just will not be tolerated in this meeting setting. Questions must be directed at the Board of Supervisors. No personal attacks will be permitted. Please be respectful. This meeting will go in an order of, where's my agenda there? Sorry about that. We're going to have some opening comments from the supervisors. Then the applicant's going to give their presentation, which will then give us a chance to ask our questions and have our comments to their presentation. Once we're through all those questions and comments, we will open the floor up to public comment with closing remarks wrapping up by 9 p.m. and we are to be exited from the building by 9:30. Is everyone clear on that? Yep. Excellent. We're going to have a great meeting. I want to see lots of smiles and lots of patience. So let us begin with Clinton for opening statements.
I've got opening remarks over here, and then we'll turn it over to Clinton. Okay. Thanks, Peter. Can everyone in the back hear me? We're good? All right, thank you. Like many of you, I and the majority of our staff have attended all the previous planning commission meetings in person. Through those meetings, we've seen firsthand the passion, the thoughtfulness that has been expressed by both our residents and non-residents. We've structured tonight's meeting to be informative, to provide clarity, and to give residents and the applicant the opportunity to voice your opinion. This special meeting will focus on application number 2025-08 ALD, a revised amended land development proposal for a data center located at Backton Hill and Sweetsford Road. The board may or may not take action this evening, depending upon the outcome of this and these discussions this evening. A second and likely final meeting is tentatively scheduled for April 21st, subject to securing a venue large enough to accommodate the approximate 400 residents, non-residents that we expect to attend. To date, we have received 42 written questions and comments specifically for this meeting. Approximately 20 of those are similar in nature. As such, the staff will prepare comprehensive responses after incorporating additional information gathered tonight. And those responses will be posted to the Township website as part of the public materials. In addition, I have personally received and reviewed and read 173 emails that date back to January 27th. And I expect Peter and Clinton have received the same and similar volume of responses. Some further background how we got and why we're here at this point in time. Land development and municipal planning is very complicated. I've been 40 years in healthcare, and I never thought any industry could be any more messed up. But this is I found it here. It's very confusing. There's a lot of moving parts. So a little bit of the background on this. In January of 2018, the developer first appeared before the Zoning Hearing Board, a quasi-judicial body established underneath the Municipal Planning Code, the MPC. The Zoning Hearing Board operates independently of the Board of Supervisors and functions like a court for zoning and land use matters. Its primary responsibilities include hearing requests for variances, which is permission to deviate from the zoning requirements due to hardship, and special exceptions, which are uses permitted under specific conditions. The Zoning Hearing Board does not create zoning laws. It interprets them and applies them. In its 2018 and 21 decision, the Zoning Hearing Board granted a use variance permitting a data center for up to approximately 1.8 million square feet on the former Foot Mineral site owned by the developer. As part of that process, the Zoning Hearing Board also established a definition of what a data center was. It's hard to believe you go back to 2018 and they had to define what a data center was. In 2024, the developer, FIG, moved forward with the project and entered the land development process. Land development governs how a site is planned, designed, constructed at the local level. This includes site layout, parking, drainage, access roads, building placement, facades, landscaping, stormwater management. The land development process includes these groups. The Planning Commission, which reviews the plans and provides recommendation. Zoning officers, who ensure compliance with applicable regulations. And the Board of Supervisors, which renders the final decision. The preliminary land development plan LD 14-2023 was approved in June of 2024, and the final land development approval was granted under Resolution 30-2024 on August 14, 2024 by the Board of Supervisors. So that's a little bit of the background, and hopefully that helps as we move forward in this process. What I'd like to do at this point in time is offer my fellow supervisors the opportunity to provide any opening remarks that they would like.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Clinton Smith, as a newly elected member of the board, and someone who has been proud to call East Whiteland Township my home for the last 8 years. I do want to offer just a few brief remarks. Since taking office, I have made it a priority to carefully review the application materials and the extensive correspondence that we spoke about here, shared by the residents over the last few months. Doing that, it does matter to me personally, but also it is the responsibility of our role. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our residents. This is a community that shows up, pays attention, and speaks thoughtfully about its future. The comments we've received, whether raising concerns, asking questions, sharing different viewpoints, reflect the deep respect for the township and its character. The level of civic engagement is a strength, and it does deserve recognition. I'd also like to acknowledge the professionals involved in this process, including the township employees, the volunteers from the Zoning Hearing Board, the Planning Commission, as well as the developers team. Their willingness to engage, provide information, and participate in public discussion has helped to support dialogue in this orderly review. As a board, our responsibility is to apply the township's ordinance and laws of the Commonwealth and fairly and consistently. We have a duty to the residents and are responsible for the general governance, health, safety, and welfare of our community. I recognize that development discussions and decisions, particularly those significant in scale, can stir up strong feelings and difficult conversations. It is important that we as a township continue to be engaged and have tough, thoughtful conversations, as these conversations do not end with a vote, and neither does our responsibility to listen. As a resident and now a supervisor, I take that responsibility seriously. I want to just thank everyone for your time tonight and being here and your engagement and your continued commitment to our township. And I look forward to the conversation tonight. And thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Clinton. First of all, I want to thank all of you who have sent me emails with the concerns you each have for the data center to be built. Your concerns are my concerns. I want you all to know they are taken seriously. Before directly addressing your concerns, I wanted to rewind back to when this was presented, although Scott just did that, to us between 2021 and 2024. At that time, data centers were not such a hot button issue, and the supervisors at the time knew only that the data center would most likely be used for cloud storage, which at the time, their demand was growing larger. The amount of public input or concern then was very small, other than noise concerns from Malvern Hunt from their proposed cooling systems. The township hired an expert acoustical engineer, Dr. Carr Everbach, a professor at Swarthmore College with a BA from Harvard and an MS and PhD from Yale, to address noise and ensure compliance with the township's ordinances. Our expert confirmed that the noise levels from the proposed chillers would not be audible to any residents outside the data center property line in a manner that would violate our ordinances. Also, we as a township have a strong noise ordinance that if there were to be a persistent noise violation, that our ordinance is strong enough that we could pursue a full range of enforcement action against the user and property owner. Also, in the planning, the township is in every step to ensure that the applicant complies with the noise ordinance. Nonetheless, your concerns are my concerns, and I had our solicitor schedule a site visit to 2 data centers, one in New Jersey and one in New York, on this past Friday, April 10th. Not all data centers are built in the same way, and therefore, to have an apples-to-apples comparison, we went to see a Sentinel data center for a direct comparison. It could almost be akin to comparing Citizens Bank Park to Camden Yards in Baltimore. They're both baseball stadiums, but they are completely different. So we wanted to go see a Sentinel data center. Assistant Township Manager Catherine Ricardo and Solicitor Bernadette Kearney and I traveled to and met the members of the Sentinel team and their lawyer at a data center they built in New Jersey. We were also able to meet with an elected councilman and his business administrator, which would be his probably equivalent to his manager, from the municipality where the New Jersey data center was located. I can personally confirm that there was no audible noise greater than 50 decibels when standing less than 30 feet from a wall where on their side was a liquid-cooled chiller that has been in operation since 2010. If standing outside of this 50-foot tall building without knowing what its purpose was, I would not have thought anything of it at all. My second observation at this site was that from that same wall that blocked the chiller was a neighborhood not more than 250 feet away. The trees weren't in leaf, so I could see the houses clearly. I asked the councilman and administrator if there ever was any complaints from the residents and what those home values are. They said there have not been any complaints, and the value of the homes in the adjacent neighborhood are $2 million and up. Certainly no one would have been aware of what was going up in 2010 to even know to raise a concern. But as we stood there on this site, they were building an additional 100,000 square foot data center on that site. And they said that none of the neighbors had come out to those meetings. This is the township officials. The second site we visited was a data center built in 2023 that used air chillers, and I would report the exact same thing, that they were not of any noise concern. We do recognize, however, the concern that everyone has about noise and the reports of noise from other data center facilities. We understand the direction that what we need to take in this process to have the assurances be put in place that the data center that they propose mirrors that which we observed. In respect to home values and safety concerns, directly adjacent, no greater than 200 feet from Malvern Hunt, is the Williams Transcontinental Pump Station that occupies 75 acres of land directly along Malvern Hunt's eastern border. The operation predates the Malvern Hunt development and has had numerous noise problems over the years that have always been resolved. In terms of safety, if something were to go wrong at this petroleum pumping facility, it would be an exponentially greater hazard or problem than anything a data center could ever pose to the Malvern Hunt community. Yet still your homes have not lost value, but have only gained in value over the years. In respect to your concerns about this data center being run off of generators, both sites visited have not ever had to use their generators to maintain a certain capacity of energy flow to the data center, but only run their generators on a test schedule like any other business / hospital, etc. would have to do. The reports you have emailed me, like the Whiteland data center had built site without getting the reports you have emailed me, for example, the Whiteland data center, that they had built at site without getting the capacity they needed from the grid first and are using their generators as a power plant in the interim. The proposed data center to be built in East Whiteland has the approved capacity needs from PECO. In respect to your environmental concern, the township has our environmental engineer here on site to look at both sets of data center plans and is here to answer questions. What is in front of the Board of Supervisors tonight is not a yes or no decision. It is the decision on which data center plan we would like to see built, because the data center will be built on this site. The 2024 approved plan is one that has a liquid-cooled chillers that will use millions of gallons of potable water per year. Although Aqua has stated to the applicant that they have the capacity to provide this quantity, I feel a queasiness in my stomach about this 2024 plan being built and the effect it will have on this natural resource. The 2025 plan is larger, and I agree that is not preferred, but it will use air-cooled chillers to operate the data center and not be a drain on the water table. I am curious to hear the applicant's presentation and all of your concerns this evening, and I hope in the end we will all be content with the end result. And now over to the applicant.
Thank you, Peter. I will add my brief comment here, and then we will go on to the presentation by the applicant, questions from the staff and the Board of Supervisors to the applicant, and then at around 8 o'clock, and I know we're about 15 minutes behind, but we're targeting around that 8 o'clock time to have comments. I understand there's a special presentation that may also be presented by one of the residents. So what I will add for comments is that this is the first publicly held Board of Supervisor meeting on this application. While I've attended all the Planning Commission meetings, participated in discussions with the Chester County Planning Commission, attended multiple data center forums, including those hosted by Cato, and conducted extensive research. My role here tonight is to listen, engage, and participate in all of those discussions. So I will move on now to, can I confirm that the presentation that the presentation is going to go on from Mr. Snyder? Are we still on for that?
Well, we were waiting approval. I understand it's not a hearing, but nevertheless, for the record, I'd like to enter my appearance.
Okay,
Just so
but
you know,
we'll
I'd
get
just like to tell you why.
we'll get back to the technical aspects. I just wanted a simple question so we can move on.
It needs to be done in advance.
Huh?
It needs to be done in advance of their, it needs to be done in advance.
Talk into the microphone, please.
Is this working? Okay. The reason Scott, I'm sorry, the reason I would like to enter my appearance early is because in the 2018, please listen to me, please. In the
We're on a
20
time frame.
I understand that.
We have to hear from the applicant.
Yeah.
All right, so listen.
Scott.
Okay,
Scott.
we're moving forward with the
Yeah.
presentation, and you'll get the opportunity here. We will.
Miss, Mr. Chairman, the way the order of the agenda was going to go was the applicant was
Applicant was gonna present.
making their presentation. We have to be very clear about this. We
Right.
have to be out of here by 9:30. We were told by Penn State
Okay,
that we can't have what happened at the Planning Commission.
gentlemen, if you start your presentation at this point in time, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, board members, for your statements. Thank the township staff, Lou Colagreco, representing the applicant, with my co-counsel, Matt McClure. We're going to keep our comments brief. Much of what we're going to present tonight is repetitive for those of you who've come to the Planning Commission meetings, and I know that the board has probably seen some or all of our prior presentations, but we want to go through it again just to make sure this is a new audience, new board, and there may be some new members here that didn't hear our Planning Commission presentation. Josh Rabina of Sentinel Green Fig will do the presentation and will be available to answer your questions as you have them after he is done. We also appreciate the fact that the township has done a good job. Brittany has done an excellent job, I think, in posting materials on the website and to make sure that this is a totally transparent process, which it has been. We will be submitting electronic copies of all the reports that we've submitted to date, just so everybody has them. It might be repetitive of what the township has already put on site, but we want to make sure that everybody has everything they need to have, especially you, when you make your decisions. So we'll get that over tomorrow in a thumb drive, and I assume, Brittany, you can just lift it up to the website. Most of it's you already have on there. So with that said, without further ado, Josh.
These don't work, so I'm gonna just, you could go to the next one, yeah. Can you, everyone hear me? All right, I won't, Josh Rubino with Sentinel Greenfig, our partnership that owns the site. I won't linger too much on this. I think Chairman Lambert gave a brief history of the site, very short version, super fun site. After remediation over a number of years, is now, we are seeking not approval of the data center use, as Chairman Lambert said, but a amendment to the existing land use plan. The plan's been through the Planning Commission and reviewed by staff and has been confirmed, in our opinion, to be compliant with all of the ordinances. The quick summary of the changes in this plan versus the vested plan, as mentioned by Supervisor Fixler, we eliminated water use. Prior plan had evaporative cooling as its means of heat rejection of the server load. New plan has air-cooled chillers, which are closed loop and don't use water. New plan, and by the way, we're going to go through here a very similar presentation we went to with the Planning Commission. For the record, we have some ideas at the end of this in response to some of the concerns we've heard from the community. We'll get to at the end, but current plan is 800,000 feet above grade, 2 buildings aggregating to 1.6 million. The prior plan was 500,000 feet per building. 500,000 feet total above grade with, per building and 250 below grade, so 1.5 million in aggregate with the basements. We've added landscaping to Sweetsford Road, and we've removed antenna yards and cooling and microwave towers that were part of the prior plan. Just quick updates since the last Planning Commission meeting. We set up a website which was requested. We posted a FAQ on the website. We posted a PowerPoint on the website that's describing our changes. We've recorded and approved the East Whiteland and West Whiteland plans under the vested plan. We've received a comfort letter from the EPA, which is a roadmap as to the steps we need to take to safely develop the site. And we will be commencing construction in West Whiteland of the stormwater facilities this week. In summary, again, not seeking approval of a data center. We're really seeking approval of a better data center, a more modernized, more sustainable, more aesthetically pleasing facility. It's been confirmed as compliant, and we're seeking affirmation that this plan solidifies this site as a better solution than the last one. Just to go through very quickly each of the components that we understand there are concerns about, and try to be as responsive as we can. With respect to visual impact, the new site, we've, as mentioned in prior meetings, brought on a world-renowned architect, Gensler, same architect that we mentioned has done towers in Manhattan for us and other assets to try to make the southern facade of the northern facade of this building look as aesthetically pleasing as possible. You can go to the next. It's just another 2 views of the site. This is the square footage as mentioned. So as currently proposed, the new site aggregates to 1,605,000 square feet. The old site with basements was 1,504,000. Without basements was just around 1 million. We removed the towers and the antenna yards, as we've mentioned. We've dramatically increased the landscaping along the Sweetsford Road elevation. This landscaping was designed not in our site, but in the public right-of-way that used to be 2 sewage lagoons. We will be planting 442 trees in either case, but in our new plan, we will be investing heavily, almost 3 times as much, to make those trees bigger. So 6 feet goes to 12 to 14 feet, 1.5 inch diameter goes to 3.5 to 4.5 inch diameter. We've added 600 shrubs We planted a number of berms. The plan was originally designed by a group of students in collaboration with some students at Temple University, and we are planning to really invest heavily to make that look great. Next slide is just, again, we take enormous amounts of pride in what we build. We're not building low-end commodity product. We take enormous amounts of pride in how it looks. We take enormous amount of pride in being members, good members of the communities in which we build. Water usage, as we've discussed, 2 ways to cool a data center. Neither way is a new or an old technology. They are both good technologies. Water actually is a more efficient way to get rid of heat. We are not using water here to get rid of heat. We are using air to get rid of heat. That trade-off costs us dollars. It's more expensive to operate, but it means we're not using 3 million gallons a day of water to reject heat from the data center. It's a technology that's been around forever. It's technology that's used heavily throughout all the commercial buildings in this township, in this county, in the country. Just to put in context again, 3 million gallons is almost 200 swimming pools worth of water. Acoustics. Again, we have hired our own licensed acoustician who's modeled this 1,000 different ways. We've submitted those models to Professor Everbach, who's reviewed them. We made worst case assumptions in these models, meaning, the noise producing elements primarily are the chillers. The chillers we assumed were running at 100, with the building at 100% load on the hottest day of the year. And we assumed essentially that everything was impervious surface, no grass, no trees, no sound absorptive materials of any sort. And we still got 2 levels that are functionally, indecipherable at the property line, 45 to 55, with 1 outlier at 57 or 58 that sits with the receptor next to the Pico substation to the south. These are the receptors we modeled, which evolved over time, and we eventually added the school down to the southwest. These levels, again, in the 40s to mid 50s are essentially imperceptible. I speculating, but I would imagine actually our building's going to be blocking the noise from the highway more than it is adding to the noise from the highway. I stood out there today. Anyway, won't go there. Again, these, we can get into the weeds on these studies. We've been through them a few times. We ran for our own benefit a version of this that added in some of the vegetation and the grass and the trees, and it reduces all this by another 3 to 4 decibels. So the real world version of this, and by the way, data centers never run at 100% load. There's a real aversion to running beyond the red line and having things shut down. So the real world, this maxes at 75%. The real world, there's trees. And as as has been stated tonight, like when you stand 6 feet away from these data centers, you do not hear anything. We've heard Vineland brought up numerous times in all multiple meetings, et cetera. And I really want to draw a distinction here because it's extraordinarily important. Vineland is not just doing it temporarily. They have a permanent source of power that is essentially marine engines that are installed on site, natural gas powered, running around the clock. So as Vineland's solution to not having enough grid power, they were able to get permits and build a power plant, a real functioning round the clock power plant for 85% of their power. We have 0 of that. Our generators are for backup only. The reason we are in this location is it is a hole in the Pico grid that had capacity to do what we needed to do. It sits directly adjacent to a massive Pico substation. We will not, and we will commit to this in the resolution, generate with combustion power any of our primary power on this site. That means no noise around the clock, which is low frequency noise, like the hum and the buzz that everyone's complaining about in Vineland, is because these are, these are engines, marine engines that are running around the clock. They're at a very low frequency. That frequency does not dissipate over distance, unlike our noise source, which is chillers, which are at higher frequency and fall away very quickly over distance and can be blocked with mitigation, with barriers. Same with emissions. No, constantly running generators, constantly running emissions. We have no constant emissions. Heat. This was a study that Planning Commission Laumer had asked us for. We ran the engineering on heat generation from the site, and the conclusion is essentially that there's no perceptible change, at the property line in any ambient temperature or heat conditions, even on the hottest day of the year. Emergency generators. The reason we are here is because of this chart. Like this power has not gone down at this location. There are 4 230 kV transmission feeds that feed the Pico Plainbrook substation. It's one of the most networked and resilient substations in their network, and it has not been down other than for 7 hours in 2003. Again, to just reiterate, obviously we're going to comply with respect to generators to noise ordinances. We're going to comply with the EPA's stringent regulations. As context, this location is a non-attainment zone. That means it's among the most stringent sets of emissions and constraints and fuel consumption constraints and everything else that the EPA can impose on any data center in the country. To the extent that we're deploying generators, we're spending roughly $500,000 per engine to add emissions controls in excess of what is normally done in a typical generator that's not in a non-attainment zone. We've also agreed to visually and acoustically screen the generators from all the public rights of way. We've also agreed to simultaneously test only 2 generators, so we're never going to be running all these for testing at the same time. We've also agreed to not test at all during daytime hours, and we've also agreed to actively monitor at the property line to the extent that something violates the ordinance. So there's the rendering of the enclosures. There should be no visual impact. This is some detail on the emissions controls, which is probably not worth getting into. Other public safety. There's no credible evidence that a properly permitted data center like this harms people or harms children in any way. We've heard that over and over again. We can discuss again tonight. But simply stated, and again, I would hope some of you come.
Excuse me, please
Yeah.
let the applicant talk. Excuse me, ma'am, please let him talk. You will have your time. You're still going to have to hear it. We have not. Please have some decorum.
This is a different body that's hearing this.
For those of you who have been to a data center, it is a building full of computers. It is commercial chillers on the roof, same chillers that are used extensively throughout the country. It's emergency generators and sound attenuated enclosures in screened equipment yards that almost never run. That is the collection of things that could conceivably harm someone. There is nothing in that collection that any expert has ever made anyone else aware of that poses a harm to any person or any child in any community. Again, to go through the list in detail, and this is straight out of the questions we've received at these meetings and otherwise. Generator emissions, again, we addressed. This is not Vineland. This is not a primary power source. Water table contamination, we are not discharging any water other than for bathrooms and sinks like any commercial project would. We are not manufacturing chemicals. We are not processing chemicals. This is a much cleaner use than any of those types of manufacturing uses that have been cited along the way, fracking, et cetera, et cetera. This uses maintenance and cleaning fluids, engine lubricants, HVAC refrigerants. All of these things are common in all, many commercial buildings in and around the county and the country. We've heard lots of comments about e-waste. These tenants are large, public, regulated companies that have processes in place to get rid of their end-of-life computer hardware, which I think is the concern. They're professionally decommissioned. There's rooms within the building that are built specifically to decommission these things, and they ship them off and they dispose of them correctly. This is not a fly-by-night operation that's just dumping old servers into a landfill. We've heard lots of comments about EMF and radio waves and radiation. There's been enormous amounts of research on this, not just for data centers, but for any sort of a power source, power lines, et cetera, by WHO, by the FCC, by the IEEE. EMF readings do not travel more than inches or feet from their source and do not propagate through air. If you stand at the outside wall of a data center and you take an EMF reading, it is no different than background. It is much higher than a hairdryer. So that is not a valid concern. Lastly, on economic development, we're not going to get into numbers, but needless to say, this will, this project is a multi-billion-dollar project. We're not going to do the math. You guys can do the math, but we do believe this will produce many, many millions of dollars to the township, to the county, and to the school district. To summarize our commitments beyond the ordinance, all of which we are willing to commit to: air-cooled chillers, larger trees and berms, as we discussed, aesthetics consistent with the renderings, as we've discussed, removal of the antenna yards and the microwave towers, construction of sound walls and screens, real-time monitoring, limitation on generator runtimes and hours, and we added no on-site combustion engines as a primary source of power in lieu of utility. Okay. So now to the fun part here. So we've listened to all the concerns. Obviously, we've sat through now three of these sessions, 3.5 if you count the one that was shut down. We've some of them we believe to be in good faith. If you could go back for a second. Good faith. The one that we hear over and over and over again, including the one that's featured on the flyer that was passed out tonight, as I just saw, is that the buildings are 60% bigger. While we don't believe they're 60% bigger, they are bigger, about 100,000 feet bigger if you include the basements, and about 15 feet taller. And that's factual, and it's a criticism that we deem to at least have been made in good faith. In response, and as a genuine effort to build goodwill here, we are prepared, provided certain milestones and conditions are achieved, which we'll discuss, to build a predominantly single-story version of the pending application. This smaller plan would total 887,000 square feet across 2 buildings. That compares to the 1,065,000 that is in our pending application. To put this in further perspective, the zoning allows us to build 1.86 million square feet. That's the project that Charlie got zoned, spent 10 years doing. That's the project that we paid for. We are building less than half of that. Our own pending application of 1.65 million square feet is 86% larger than this proposal. The current approved and vested plan, including basements at 1.54 million square feet, is 74% larger than this proposal. And even the currently approved plan, excluding basements, at 1.03 million square feet, is 16% larger than this proposal. These buildings, these smaller buildings, would be between 15 and 25 feet shorter than all of the plans just referenced. This is not a token adjustment. This is not building 1 million square feet that we are allowed to build. This is a dramatically smaller project. This is a project that could not conceivably have a lower impact, we believe, to this community. That said, our ability to concede to the smaller project depends on one thing: certainty. Our commitments have timelines. If this approval process is delayed, or if further appeals are filed, or if the current appeal is not withdrawn, we will simply have no choice but to continue building the current plan. This is... Okay.
Please let him talk. Please let him talk.
We've been accused of bluffing. This is not bluffing, as we keep hearing.
Please let him talk. This is enough.
I'm a bully who
this is
just
his rights.
cut our plan in half.
All right, folks. All right, folks, let him talk, please.
This is not us bluffing. The approved plan is less desirable for us and for our customers. It is less elegant and less efficient of a design, but it's functional, it's profitable, it's vested, and it gives us certainty. We've posted bonds, we've mobilized earthwork, and we're commencing work on the portions of the site that are common to both plans, with the hope of being able to build the new plan. If we determine in May that we can't build the better plan, we have no choice but to simply keep building the vested plan. So we are asking, again, we know there are those in the room tonight that will not hear this, and there are those that have open minds, but we'd ask you to recognize what's being offered here. This is not lip service. This is not a lip service concession. It is a complete re-engineering of the project to accommodate what we believe to be the primary concern. It is literally the concern that is on the flyer that was passed around tonight. We are also asking you to please understand that any effort to delay or appeal this will not stop the project. It will result in exactly what many of you came here to oppose, which is an inferior project that is 74% larger than what we're proposing here tonight. To give a sense of what we're offering here, this is a scaled rendition of the reduced proposal versus the pending application. This is 90% of the area of the building, goes from 60 feet tall to 35 feet tall. You can go to the next one. This is the front elevation facing north. This goes from a 60-foot tall, two-story administrative office building at the front of the structure to a 45-foot tall, two-story office building at the front of the structure. This just gives a sense for how these elevations tie back to the rendering. To compare the numbers, as we've just said, recorded plan is 45 feet, current application 60. These applications are between 30. This proposed alternative is 35 to 45 feet. 887,000 feet total versus 1,006,000 in the current application and 1,005,000 in the vested plan. With basements, 1 million without basements is still larger than the 887,000 feet we're proposing. We're continuing to invest in the landscaping. We're continuing to invest in the air-cooled chillers. It's a quieter plan, uses less water, gets rid of the microwave towers. We can skip this. This is, I stated already. In conclusion, again, our initially proposed plan, even more so the smaller version, we believe represents, for an industrial, fully disturbed, ex-Superfund site, hard to conceive of another use that results in less impact to this community. No traffic, no noise, no burden on schools, no water sewer demands, material, no industrial manufacturing hazards, warehouse truck traffic, low lot coverage, major landscaping initiative, and a huge rateable. We'll do everything we can, as I hope this is an indication of, to continue to earn your respect as a good neighbor, and we appreciate the consideration.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the community, my name is Matt McClure. I'm a lawyer, co-counsel with Luau Calagraco. Just a couple of things to think about on this proposal. It is the same land development application other than we would be halving the size of the building. There would be no different changes to the application. The land development plan would be the same. It would be half of the square footage that was proposed. It would be less of the square footage that is approved. When I say approved, there is a final recorded plan ready to go, and we are in operation and starting construction. This is made in good faith in order to address the concerns, both visual, factual, and environmental. There was a lot of concerns about water usage that the vice chairman brought up regarding the amount of water usage that an open loop system uses. This would be a closed loop system, which means less of an impact on the water, on Aqua and the community. We believe it's a better choice. We believe it's a way that achieves both our business ends and the community's good stewardship as a good steward of the environment. That is the proposal, and we bring in it in good faith. With that being said, like any business, we will protect our rights. And we were saying we would like to work in good faith, and we believe that we have great partners in this township and great partners in this community. But we have to work together, and this is our attempt to do so. Thank you.
Everything okay?
Everything okay, Wanda?
Okay, so at this point in time, we're gonna pose some questions. As Clinton, would you like to start, or Peter, would you like to start? I know I've got a number of questions, but no particular order.
Yes. Yep. Just one question regarding the commission, or no, the energy production. Stated there wouldn't be any new energy production outside of combustion production outside of the diesel generators. Is there any other type of energy creation outside of just combustion engines, or anything that you would in the future? I'm just looking at, you're not, there isn't something else out there that you're going to look to do in the future that's not being contemplated in the current plan.
Again, the reason we're in this location is because we can get the power we need from PECO, and that's the most efficient, way to consume power. So no, the answer is no. There will be no other, again, outside of an outage where the generators are running when the PECO grid is out, we will not produce power on our site.
One other question, regards to technology, and as we all know, we see technology changing on a daily basis. Looking 5, 10 years down the road, as computer chips continue to get smaller, technology enhances, maybe the space isn't needed or the level size of the building isn't needed. Is there any plan and a contingency for the operation to, if you had to scale back or had to shut down, the plan to have in place to protect the community if at time that needed to take place?
And the honest answer is, once we're up and running, it's very difficult to shut down. Like we have commitments to our customers and the contractual commitments.
Right. I'm just more thinking if they had to, if the business had to shut down due to the changes in technology in the future, is there something in place to protect or decommission the structure, or how would that?
You're talking like if this had to, at end of life be demolished, obviously we'd have to comply with, code and just, if we're removing, whether it's the server infrastructure, which again, there's a very defined process that these firms go through to get rid of their servers, but also, again, these are the guts of these buildings are the same guts as in any commercial building. There's just more of them. So transformers, switchgear, chillers, iron pipe for closed loop distribution. So it's the same stuff. It's just, that would you get if you demolished an office building or a warehouse.
Okay. I was just concerned with the change in technology. Go ahead.
Can I just interject?
Sure.
Clint and I are both in the insurance business, so this is a little bit of where this is coming from, is that underneath our current development situation and laws and requirements is that bonds have to be posted by developers. And the intent of the bond is to make sure that when the project is completed and all of the outstanding items are going to be completed, and if the developer retreats, leaves, there is the bond to protect, to make sure that the outstanding items are covered. Would you consider some type of 5-7 year bond for decommissioning for a certain price for the knowledge to know that if a data center goes in and things just totally change around? I mean, we've already seen in 2 years the substantial changes that have occurred in your design work. So who's to say something's not going to change in 4 or 5 years? The point I'm making is, would you consider putting up some type of bond for the decommission so that the township is not on the hook for demolishing this data center?
It's not something we've ever been asked. It's something we would have to discuss. By the way, like the copper is worth 100 times the demo cost. Just to put that out there. Like the demo here would be a profitable enterprise, not a money loser. But we can certainly discuss. I'm not sure. I mean,
If there's a change in technology, aren't we going to be in the situation that we're going to come back either trying to reposition the interior of the building, and if it has an exterior change, we're going to be back to the township for some sort of approval?
Well, I don't know. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, the internal guts that you've got there are not sufficient to handle whatever new technology is coming in. And so you decided to cut and run and leave East Whiteland Township with a building that is, unusable.
I understand the request. I know of no other use where there is a requirement that you post a bond for if the use ever goes away. So obviously we have to comply with law. We have to comply to make sure it's environmental sustainable. I assume you have a property maintenance code. I assume all that stuff. I assume you can't have an abandoned building. So obviously we would commit that we would decommission the facility if we ever went out of business. And decommissioning the facility means in accordance with all federal, state, and local laws. And obviously the township can make changes to local laws all the time operationally. So we would have to comply with local laws when it comes to decommissioning the facility. But we can't say we're going to post money for the building to go away one day when that is not the intention or in line with the financing of the structure.
Yeah. You have that question? Yeah, Quentin, you got any more?
I think I'm good. I mean, there's really two.
Okay. You want to go?
Yeah. Why, you want to go? Tomato, tomato?
My question, I'm a simple man and just looking at these numbers, is the current application, the center column, the 1.6 million square foot, is that two structures?
Two roughly 800,000 foot structures.
The far right column, the one-story alternative, is that one structure or two structures?
Two.
So
Two 400 and
400,000.
change. Yeah,
Okay. And much shorter.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, one story.
In my mind, I thought it was
predominantly
just going to be
story.
one. In my mind, I thought it was going to be one building. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
The 30-foot, the 35, does that include the chillers, height of the chillers?
No, the 35 is measured as they all are across the top based on the ordinance, which is to the midpoint of the roof. And then the chillers would be on top of that with, again, this is apples to apples with the ordinance. There's another 7 to 10 feet of sound wall, essentially, screening the chillers, and the chillers are sitting on dunnage on top of the roof.
So I can compare apples to apples. The current application of 60 feet, does that include the chillers?
That was also to the midpoint of the roof structure.
Okay, so 60 is actually more, is higher.
Yeah.
Okay. And the 45 recorded plan use would be an additional, in theory, 12 or 13.
45 foot is the office component, so it'd be a much more attractive facade, and it's 45 feet is also to the roof. Are there chillers above the, there's not much above the admin portion of the building. Yeah, rooftop units like there are in any office building, basically.
Okay. On the water chillers, the 3 million gallons of water, at some point that has to get offloaded, and what agency would oversee, from an environmental standpoint, that water being dispersed?
When we build, and Nick can speak to this better than I can, but when we build evaporative cooling towers, which we have built before, that you can build them with a feature that's called zero blowdown, which means you're not blowing down any water to sewer or to storm. So that's the latest technology that didn't always exist. So there's very little discharge to sewer, even from a evaporative cooling system that's well built today. And that has to do with the type of water treatment you do. And if if you'd like a lot more detail, Nick can provide it. But it's I don't know the agency that would oversee discharge to sewer in general, but we'd have to comply with all law, code, and regulation. Or, yeah.
I think he needs a microphone.
Nick, you want to just describe what is.
Jack Robbins from JMR Engineering. The sewer authority would have to obtain a certain number of EDUs to be able to discharge anything additional than what we're planning to right now with the normal restrooms. As you probably are aware, this site has over 500 EDUs from the previous retirement community. We're using 8. So there's a capacity with this site, which is why the sewer was built to begin with, down the trail.
Nick Maserati, Sentinel. I think the question is, where do the 3 million gallons a day go, right? The majority of it is evaporated into the atmosphere. So it just is mists and plumes up and it goes up. But there is a small percentage in water-cooled facilities that are not zero blowdown that would discharge. They basically have to run a process to kind of pressure wash the filtration system, and that gets sent through as an effluent to the sewer system, which we would not be employing anyway in the event that we do build a water cool plant. We would be using a zero blowdown system, which we can get into as well.
Okay, and hold on. I know, Peter, you kind of alluded, but I just wanted to ask this to get a clarification again. In terms of the sound differences between the water chilled and the air chilled, I'm talking both not only dBs, but also the different levels of frequencies. You know, there's been reports of hearing certain fans that are going whop, 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 and vibrations that are occurring, and others they're not. So can you kind of run through the difference between those three scenarios with the water chilled versus the air chilled?
The evaporative cooling towers, which are the outdoor component of the water-cooled solution, are large towers. We showed you pictures of them. The way they reject heat from the data center is the hot water from the data center gets distributed in an open loop over the top of the cooling tower, and there is a large fan blade that's rotating at the top to disperse the water and cool it with air that's being drawn in by the fan into the sides of the cooling tower. That large fan produces a lower frequency noise profile than the many small fans that sit on top of air-cooled chillers. So think a helicopter has a large blade that's rotating. That's what, it's not nearly that bad. And by the way, that solution was modeled and reviewed and is completely compliant and also in the mid-50s. So it's not the end of the world, in terms of noise, but it is worse and lower frequency than the sound pressures that were modeled with respect to the air-cooled chiller plant. And our acoustic report has some graphs in it that reflect those sound pressures and the frequencies, which make that point.
Dr. Averbach, thoughts on that?
He's right. Two things about the water-cooled chillers. First of all, they are low frequencies, slow blade passing. They originally contemplated, I think 10 per side or something like that. Those blades are spinning and going around, but they're not all synchronized with each other. So sometimes you get one spinning slightly faster than the one next to it, and you get beating, which is a wah, 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 wah effect on all the water-cooled chillers on both sides. So the first thing is you have the low frequencies, which he's right, they're harder to block. Noise barriers aren't as effective, and they propagate farther. The reason for that is that the moisture in the air absorbs high frequencies, but not low frequencies. So you do not want low frequencies. And by the way, you can tell this because the sound of 202 is mostly the low frequency truck noise, especially trucks that are braking. The low pitches are what you hear. You don't so much hear the tire noise, the buzzing of the tires. You can, but mostly it's the low frequencies that propagate. So that's the water-cooled chillers. The air-cooled chillers have the disadvantage that they're on the roof and not on the ground. However, you've got lots of little fans that are going fast, and so it's kind of like a hum, like a beehive or something, higher frequency, but also not beating in the same way, because you've got lots more of them. And it's kind of like a choral effect. It's literally called the choral effect, when a bunch of people are singing together and they're not exactly on pitch, but it kind of blends into a blob. That's kind of what you're going to hear from this. The other really important point that you didn't mention, and I'll just conclude with this, is that the water-cooled chillers are loud all the time, and they don't have any effect whether they're doing a lot of cooling or little cooling, because those fans just turn all the time. The air-cooled chillers that they're proposing for the roof will be louder when it's hot and humid, or a higher load, but during times when it's not so hot and humid, they'll be quieter. So they've modeled not only the 100%, and then their claim is that mostly they're going to be running at 75% of capacity, But even that is going to kind of yo-yo up and down depending upon conditions inside and outside. And what that means is that most of the time they'll be even much quieter than optimistic because they're not, at maximum. So I think they have estimated, the worst case situation. I think even that is compliant in my view. But I think the residents who are really worried that this is going to ruin their lives will find that when this is built, it will not ruin their lives.
Thank you, Dr. Everbach. I have a quick question for you, just so I understand you. You said a lot there, but I think what you're saying is that the air chillers are a quieter option than the constantly running.
So there are two issues.
Evaporative.
There are two
water
issues. What does quieter mean? There's loud and soft, but there's also high and low, right? And I'm talking now about high versus low frequencies, which is different from quieter. You can have a loud low note or a soft loud note, low note, or a loud high note or a soft high note. What I'm saying is even if they're the same loudness, the low frequencies are going to be more of a problem for the neighbors. So that would be that's the water-cooled, big, slow-moving fan chillers.
Gotcha.
If I were a resident, I would not want these water-cooled chillers near me because the sound will penetrate. It also goes through walls more easily. That's the other thing. It's not just the sound you measure outside, it's how much gets into your house. The low frequencies tend to penetrate through buildings more easily. So avoid the low frequencies in my view.
That potential's there with the water towers. Thank you. And but just to be clear, you have signed off on their initial 2024 proposal would not cause any.
Could I say something about that? Why I did that?
Because I'm trying to find that out. Please let him speak.
No. The reason is that your noise ordinances have no information about high frequencies versus low frequencies. It is completely absent. I was hired by you guys to assess a plan and say whether it's compliant. And I'm not responsible for your noise ordinances. That's your thing. And so my job. My job is to say whether, in my professional opinion, they will meet the ordinances. And whether it's high or low frequencies, the actual loudness will be the same or will be compliant. Mm-hmm. That's my professional view, and I can elaborate. But the reason why we're having this high versus low thing has nothing to do with your noise ordinances. This just has to do with like the quality of the sound, not how much of it there is.
Okay. And I'm going to put you on the spot again, of course. That's why you're here. Do you believe with the water-cooled towers, you would be able to hear them at the property line with the noise mitigation walls they have proposed?
Well, let's be clear. I never said it that you would not hear them. That's a comment you made in your remarks, and my eyebrows went up because I never said they'd be inaudible. I just said they would be near the background or at the background level, which is changing all the time, right? Everyone knows you stand outside. It can be louder or softer depending upon traffic or airplane flyovers or wind or insects or a lot of different things.
We're in a metropolis. It's a very busy area.
I would never said it would be inaudible, and I don't think either one would be inaudible. The question is, does it meet the ordinances, and will it be intrusive, which is a different question. I think that in the lulls, you will probably hear either one. But I think with the water-cooled chillers, with the low frequencies, they will be more intrusive. You will hear them more often. Lulls, when it's really loud outside, you probably won't hear either one, honestly. But that's not what we're debating here or discussing. We're trying to trade off against two alternatives: the air-cooled chillers on the roof, the water-cooled chillers on the ground. And I will tell you that my strong recommendation is that the air-cooled chillers will be better for East Whiteland Township residents than the water-cooled chillers.
Thank you, Dr. Everbach.
Thank you. I think I've got two other questions, and we're kind of right on schedule at this point in time. We've got one of the things that was mentioned many times back in the early 23-24 meetings that were held was concern about generators from the standpoint of the sound from those generators. The original 2024 plan sort of mitigates all of that because it's in the basement. Now we're in a situation where it's outside of the basement. what I've learned in a number of meetings that I've attended, that due to environmental issue and changes, yes, up until now, the use of generators coming on has been very limited to because of many different factors, but those factors are unfortunately changing. We've got environmental issues, we've got capacity issues. So the likelihood that the generators that are now situated on the outside of the building could potentially become online perhaps a little bit more. The grids are calling data centers when there's an issue and asking them to go offline to save capacity for them. So that was one of the things that I always thought and heard the residents about, the fact that those generators were in the basement. But is there any way that these generators can be placed in something like a basement so that there's mitigation of sound from them?
Yeah, in the current plan, they're in a basement. In the new plan, we're not building basements, and we're just cut the plan in half and don't have room to put the generators inside. I will say though, just because the generators were in the basement in the old plan, and we built many generators indoors, that does not necessarily mean they're less noisy, because the generators have to have huge amounts of air intake, which is louvered, and huge amounts of exhaust, which is typically done through an areaway through the top of the building. That louvered intake, you can dampen with acoustical dampening, which we buy when we build generators indoors. We are buying acoustical enclosures for the outdoor generators that do the same thing. So these generators are sitting in 75 dB enclosures outside the building, which are built to dampen the same way they would, probably even better, frankly, than what we do when we build indoor generators. So, there is a natural dampening, I'm sure, from the louvered wall, but there's also a louvered wall in the enclosure. So it really is a fairly apples to apples, sound comparison in my non-expert opinion.
Okay, and I've got one more question, is that, can you tell us the data center users or usage going forward in terms of, I know you probably can't identify the specific company that might be using it, but what type of usage might be, or what is proposed over here in East Whiteland? Is it government, private? Are they foreign, domestic? Is it TikTok?
It's not TikTok. We can say that.
You're saying it's not TikTok?
It's not TikTok. It's not TikTok.
Okay.
Our data centers tend to be not just one use and not just one tenant. So we build a bit of a Swiss Army knife, and they can be used for all kinds of things. And every 3 years, those things change. So.
I wanted to circle back to the liquid cooled towers. I guess my concern is focused on the potential discharge of water that I don't know if you'll be able to answer, maybe the engineers could. Is there obviously a contaminant potential with that discharge from the data center? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Nick can speak to this, but so in an open loop system, you're evaporating all this water. That's how the cooling happens. So the vast majority of the water gets evaporated. There is water treatment that happens in any cooling tower. Again, the cooling tower is all over the place. You've got to make sure there aren't, elements growing in the water that can clog the pipes and other things. And Nick can provide a lot more detail on how we treat that water and what the elements are. Again, this is in the open loop cooling tower world. In the closed loop world, there is no discharge. We're just rotating water through a closed loop with a pumping lineup. I don't know, Yeah, I mean, we can follow up with some detail on what the water treatment chemicals are and that kind of thing, if it's helpful in an open loop tower.
I'm just trying to ask on an environmental angle. Tony, do you have anything to add or ask in that respect? Tony's our environmental consultant, for those of you who haven't caught that before.
Yeah, I was just listening and writing down, and essentially the same questions on, if it's a, if it's the open loop system, what your discharge is, what chemicals would be going in to treat that water, because I understand it needs to be super clean water.
Yeah.
And that would be one of my questions, is what's going into that? How do you treat the water, and what do you do with that water that you may be treating? Because you may be using something like RO to get super clean water.
We're happy to provide, again, not relevant to our current application because it doesn't exist in our current application, but we can provide the detail on what our typical water treatment looks like in an open loop system.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Scott, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also really an environmental question, and I wanted to follow up on the comfort letter from EPA. I have to admit I don't completely understand it. The information that is online from the EPA for the Foot Mineral Superfund site seems inconclusive. The third 5-year review, I believe, has a host of recommendations and items to be followed up on. And so what I'm really getting at is, how do we and the public know the site is ready to be built upon? I don't really know what a comfort. I don't know what a comfort letter means.
That's a good question. My name is Jennifer Fields, Zachary Environmental. I used to work at DEP. I used to work at EPA. So the comfort letter is basically a tool that EPA uses to explain the rules of engagement for anyone who wants to lease a Superfund site or buy a Superfund site. Basically, they say, we got your interest in the site. Here's some things you should know about the site, whether it's been cleaned up, whether there's any institutional controls, like a deed restriction on the property, because of the way they cleaned it up or the levels to which they cleaned it up. They also go into some detail about how you can protect yourself as a prospective purchaser of the property and not cause any additional environmental issues, right? So if they've put for example, on this site, there are wells, and those wells get monitored. So one of the things they've asked is, can you put protections around the wells so that if you have equipment driving around, you're not going to knock them over? So that's one of the types of things that they might indicate in a letter. In this letter, they're saying things like, we want you to have a soil management plan. So as you go and dig your footers and your building components, we really want you to have a plan in place just in case. If you start digging and you see something that looks like oil contamination or a drum, something that's out of place environmentally, that soil management plan becomes sort of your guidance book. You've already thought about what to do, what tools you're going to use, who you're going to call, how you're going to manage that situation. We don't expect to find anything. We think the risk is very low because for years the site was tested, monitored, cleaned up. The areas were moved, contaminants were moved and stored. And so we don't expect to find anything. But in an abundance of caution, EPA is saying you should have a soil management plan just in case. They're saying we need a health and safety plan. Perfectly understandable. We're going to have a health and safety plan. They are indicating that because they still want to do some additional monitoring for VOCs, that it's in our best interest to put vapor intrusion system in the building, which we've agreed to do out of the gate, because it's certainly a lot easier to put it in at the beginning than to try to retrofit down the road should it ever become necessary. So the comfort letter just tells you the status of the site and whatever EPA encourages you to consider to keep your liability limited so that you're not causing more contamination on the site or moving contamination irresponsibly on the site if you find it, if it exists. Does that help?
Well, yeah, let me ask. I've got a couple follow-up. Can we get a copy of the comfort letter? No.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
No,
there are two
it's
letters.
not on the website that I'm aware of.
There are two letters. We'll certainly give it to you. One, because the parcels are separate. There's the landfill parcel. It has its own comfort letter. And then there's the parcel where the buildings are going to be constructed. That's a separate comfort letter. We can certainly give them to you.
All right, thank you. And so the township is used to dealing with agencies that provide more clear and, I'll say, final, the permits issued type of a thing. So the EP, is this as good as it gets with the EPA? You get a comfort letter and it tells you about the site and it tells you things you need to do and further plans. I mean, so is there anything else to expect from the EPA?
Sure. We are in probably weekly communication with the EPA for the redevelopment of the site. We have coordinated things like constructing new wells for EPA. We have done some monitoring, well sampling for EPA. We had a call within the last 2 weeks to go over their presence on site. They want to come on site. They want to take samples, them or their contractor. As part of the ongoing effort to monitor the site, they have a whole protocol for monitoring of the site, for inspection of the site. And they hope to come on site later this year. They're going to release a contract for someone to come and do this additional monitoring. What we can say about the monitoring to date is it's pretty steady. It's not fluctuating in any great detail, and it's declining according to their last 5-year review, the 2024 report. In the 2024 report, they do make some recommendations. So as time goes on, for any this is true of any Superfund site, there's a standard in place today. They build a plan to achieve the standard, and they execute it. And in this case, and many other cases, every 5 years, they come back to review how things are going. And meanwhile, data is collected. So, for example, in the 2024 5-year review, EPA looked at all the data. There were some data gaps they identified. And so what they're saying is, look, the data is pretty similar from sample result to sample result. The standards have changed a little bit. And so when the standards change, they have to look at the new standards. They can't just say, well, we cleaned it up to the old standard and we're done. So in this case, for example, lithium standard has changed, and now they want to sort of reevaluate the site with respect to it. And the lithium is in the groundwater. And what happened back when they established the record of decision, how they're going to clean up the site, they created a groundwater protection zone. So the groundwater under the site impacted by the former operations on site can't be used for drinking water. It's Chester County put a ban, I guess, on using that water a long time ago. And that is still in place. So nobody can sink a well in there and start pulling water because it doesn't quite meet, drinking water standards, but it's contained and protected. So they want to revisit that protection. They want to maybe put some new wells in. They've said they want to collect some additional data. One of the things they didn't collect, for whatever reason, over the years is a lot of information about volatile organic compounds. They only tested one well, and they want to come back out and do some additional sampling. So they're saying, we don't have any information that what is in place, this remedy that we put in place is not protected, but we want to get some more information, and then we want to revisit whether, for example, the size of the protection of groundwater is appropriate. Has it migrated or not? So this is some of the things that they'll be looking at in the future. So that's the whole purpose of a 5-year review. Come back, revisit, how are things going? And is there anything we think about the data or the information that will inform the future? So that's one thing. The next thing is that in order to construct on this site, we have to coordinate and get concurrence from EPA that we are not impacting the remedy. So we shared the design. This is true of both the recorded land use plan and the amended version. We have shared those with EPA. We've gone through conversations with them about, for example, the building is on a well, like the well is in the footprint of the building, and EPA doesn't need that particular well anymore, but they would like a well somewhere else. So we've said, listen, we'll properly close that well, and we owe you a well somewhere else.
Can I ask a clarification question real
Yes.
quick? When you're saying well, you mean monitoring well?
Monitoring wells.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all monitoring. Sorry.
I'm afraid some people are maybe misinterpreting that too.
No,
drinking
there are
well.
a lot of monitoring wells. And like I said, EPA looked at the history of data and said, yeah, this well isn't telling us anything necessarily important, but we definitely want to relocate some wells. And so we've committed to them, number one, to sample the wells, number two, to close the wells that are in the building footprint, and number three, to relocate wells wherever they deem that they would be helpful for this next phase of monitoring. So there's a couple things going on, and I'm going to tell you those conversations are ongoing, pretty much at this point weekly. But it comes and goes. We want to share a bunch of stuff with you, and then we wait for a response, and then it's back and forth.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, that's a lot of information, and I know this is a sensitive issue, for everyone in the room, and I know it's very time sensitive for the applicant, because I understand the applicant does intend to move forward with their approved plan. What I'm going to ask is, I would like you, with permission from the applicant, to coordinate, communicate directly with Tony and Integral, our consultants, just so we can completely understand everything you've said, and I'm sure he'll have better questions than me.
Sure.
And Steve, I would assume that at this point in time, that the 2024 plan has in fact conditions that have to be met, and one of them would be certainly getting a clean bill of health from the EPA. Am I correct with that?
The 2024 resolution does indicate that all outside agency, including the EPA, have to be met before construction.
Okay. The other question I have is that in a lot of the letters that I've read and comments is that there are a number of people that are on well water. Now that we're in the maybe close to 4 or 5 year period since EPA's been looking at this, how can we get assurances that people that are 2 miles away, they're well water, there's been no impact going forward?
So that's the intent of EPA's recommendations in the 5-year report. They are going to make sure that the boundary around the plume is still the same.
Okay.
And if it has migrated, then they're going to move the boundary. And then one of the things they did originally, there was a contaminated drinking water well, and they brought public water to that home and decommissioned the well. So you don't want anybody tapping in to a contaminated plume, and you don't want the plume to migrate to somebody's well. So they will do that research. They've already started looking at, what that effort entails and getting a contractor on board to do that.
Okay. I know you had some questions.
I do. This might be for the attorneys. I apologize. The 887 square feet,
that you're proposing. We want to make sure you're not going to come back next year and ask for 1.6 million. So I'm asking, how would that be restricted, that it would just be the 887?
Well, that would be, I mean, you heard the conditions that are attendant to that representation. If all those conditions are met and there's no legal process or no appeals, I assume that you'll carefully word that in whatever approval resolution that you, if you're so inclined to do that, that you would do that. We have no intention to come back. If this deal goes down the way it's been proposed tonight, if the one-story building, not everybody likes it, but it's certainly better than the alternative, we think. But if that goes forward, we will not be coming back to expand the 90,000 square foot building.
Okay, so as part of the resolution, it would probably be a deed restriction of some sort of declaration that it would be limited to that 887.
Again, if the other conditions that we set forth for advancing that plan are agreed to or met. But obviously, if they're not, then we'll be back with the 1.5 or the 1.6 or maybe the 1.7 plan, a 1.7 plan. So that's the issue.
Quick, on the plan comparison, I just want to make sure. It does say the 150 microwave tower is the yes, no, no. What about the rest of the antenna yard? When you look at on page 11, you have 2 microwave towers, and I think, my eyesight says, I think 5 antennas or 7?
I don't believe there's an antenna yard with the current plan.
I'm sorry?
No antenna yard.
None.
None.
Okay, yeah, it just wasn't on the plan comparison.
Mhm.
And I think I just have one other question. For the generators are diesel, correct? There's no extra storage of diesel elsewhere on the site or anything like that. You're not.
No, the generators sit on belly tanks, they're called, that store the diesel for those generators.
Sorry. So it's just the belly tanks, no other extra storage of diesel or any.
There are. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct.
Okay, those are my quick questions. Thank you.
And another question that came up, underneath this new revised plan, smaller plan that you talked about tonight, would anything be put on lot 3?
Is that the cap,
Any
lot 3 is the
structures at
cap
all?
lot?
No solar panels, no smokestacks, no whatever?
No.
That's the capped property?
That's the capped lot.
Nothing would be on it?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a few follow-ups. Can you clarify, is there going to be disposal of any materials on site, be it water, electronics, or any of the other materials associated with the operation of the data center?
No on-site dumping, if that's the question of waste or trash or construction materials. No. Water, again, we're discharging normal sinks and toilets into the sewer, but no, the building will not discharge any water onto the site.
But the water there would not be associated with cooling of the internal equipment?
Correct.
And then, God bless you. This is a question I think asked by Peter and Clinton, I think got to this one, but I just want to ask it a little bit different way. Is the applicant committing to not use the on-site generators for any kind of load management? In other words, if it's a high operation day, it's the middle of summer, PECO calls you and says, hey, turn on your generators, we need to kind of, take some load off the system. Is that something the applicant is?
I mean, we're not permitted to run, yes, I think is the answer to your question. If PECO calls us because the grid is going out, as opposed to like a demand response, I guess is what is the question. The generators are meant to run if the grid is out. That's what they're there for. So
If it's out, but not if it's kind of, they need the load to kind of shift elsewhere in the system.
yes, again, if PECO, not knowing exactly, like PECO has I don't know if PECO has policies where they're calling us to offload load, but no, the answer is, again, our generators are there for backup power only.
Okay, thank you.
One final question I've got is Is there anything that the EPA is restricting you from building a basement for?
Sorry, the recorded land use plan with the basement was approved for construction by EPA. So they did not, they approved it, and we presented them with the current plan, and they've approved that as well. They did not have any, they didn't come back to us and say, we don't want you to put a basement in for any reason at all.
Okay. And none of their follow-up studies have caused them to change that position?
That's correct, same
Okay.
position.
Just one more quick question. With regarding the revised adjustment to the plan, being that you're cutting the size of the buildings in half, are you still looking to utilize the same amount, 290 megawatt connection to the substation, or would you be cutting the amount of electrical usage in half based on the no longer needing that size, space, or capacity from a technology standpoint?
We're preserving the 290. We don't know if we will use all of it yet, but we are preserving the 290.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve, any other thoughts? I think we're 7 minutes ahead of our allotted schedule.
Yes, we are. No, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Tony?
Ed, one follow-up question for Jennifer, probably. I saw that the site was referred to as an ex-Superfund site, and you were talking about the comfort letter from the EPA. According to the EPA, what is the current status of the site?
So it's still a Superfund site, right? It maintains that status because they have ongoing monitoring. But the site has been cleaned up. It was cleaned up to the standards that were set at the time it was cleaned up. And the ongoing monitoring is to assess whether the original cleanup was appropriate, to assess whether any new standards need to apply, and if any effort needs to be put into additional work as a result of new standards. And that's part of the assessment that they're going to be working on later this year and into next year. I can't hear him.
We'll wait till the question session.
Right now, that's the question you just asked. What's the official status of protecting determination of the PA site right now?
That's actually in the 2024 report. It says, and I won't quote it because I'll have to dig it out. It basically says they have determined that the remedy, the site is, they have no new information that would lead them to believe that that site is not protective. That's what I'm just summarizing from what the report says. I'm not sure what you're referencing. When I spoke to EPA, I said, are you guys are comfortable with this plan, with us redeveloping the site? And they said yes, as we've proposed it. Now, I'll give you one clarification. When the site was proposed to be cleaned up, at that time, they cleaned it up to a residential standard. That's what all the documents say. They picked a residential standard. That standard has changed in the meantime. And so today, it does not meet a residential standard. But it is not zoned residential, and we are not constructing anything residential. And so in terms of like ready for anticipated use, that's a status that EPA uses. In 2018, they determined it was ready for anticipated use. So they have the right to withdraw a status, but that status was set on a site that was meeting a residential standard. And we are not in a residential zoning, and we're not proposing residential. And they have looked at our proposal with respect to the standards that apply to a non-residential development. And they have agreed that if we construct this, we are protective of the remedy and of the people that will work there, whether it's construction or ongoing. So they accept the change to the design, and they've addressed any concern that they might have had because we are not constructing to a residential standard.
I think we would need to see that letter sent over to Bernadette.
Say no, Scott. No.
Okay, so clock. Who's working the clock? The timekeeper.
How are we going to frame this here?
So, again, folks, we're slightly ahead. We're going to try to keep your questions to that 3-minute time frame. I'm not going to totally be on it for 3 minutes, but please don't exceed much longer of it. Please be respectful to the responses, and we'll try to answer as many of these questions and be able to get through everybody's questions at this point in time. If not, we'll just have to leave with a lot of unanswered questions. Penn State's telling us to leave at 9:30, so that's what we have to do. So I guess we need a microphone in the...
He's going to go longer. I don't know, but it's just going to cut through people's time, so.
You deal with it. I'm not dealing with it.
Yes, Andrew Schneider, Schneider.
I'm not doing it.
Schneider. I apologize for stepping out of turn beforehand, but under the municipal planning's code, I have to establish standing. And I understand you're not treating this like a hearing. The problem with that is, at the 2018 hearing, one of our solicitors, and I'm going to make comments about solicitors, but it has nothing to do with Ms. Kearney or Mr. Crotty. I've worked with Ms. Kearney for the last month, and she's been nothing but professional. But the problem is that 2018 hearing, and you're going to see this transcript, but our solicitor said, well, nobody's here to object, and nobody showed up, so they could do whatever they want. And then in 2021, you're going to see the transcript, and in 2021, somebody showed up, asked questions, and a different solicitor, without any conversation, instantly determined him to be a commentator, even though he lived in Malvern Hunt. So it's critical that we establish who we are. I have filed a land use appeal in this case. I have a vested interest. That's the reason I interrupted, and I'm sorry for that, but it was necessary. So I have a copy of my entry of appearance. It states the reasons why. I have a copy for Mr. Calagreco, and I have a copy for the record. I also have an exhibit list. I have a copy for Mr. Calagreco. I have a copy for all of you. Following up on the end, before we start, I have a group of people who are more than welcome, or more than willing to donate their time to me. I put together a PowerPoint presentation.
But I think we're going to have to allow others who are not ceding their time to you to ask questions, come up, and make their comments.
Well, what we could do is put up my PowerPoint and have people read it, or we could just be fluid with it. They could stand right next to me and read it for me.
Well, why don't we do it this?
I've cut it down to about 15 minutes.
Hold on one second. Why don't we do it this way? Is there anyone who wants to come up and make a comment or ask questions prior to Mr. Schneider making his presentation? Okay. Yeah, those people, why don't you come up?
Yeah, we're still, we're on time, okay? So we're not going to we're not going to intentionally shortchange you. I think we're good, okay?
Okay.
Honest.
All right.
Okay.
All right. As I said, my name's Andy Schneider. I'm an attorney. I've lived in Malvern Hunt for
Wait,
19.
Mr. Schneider, we're going to allow people who are not with you,
Okay.
who want to make comments or ask questions, because we don't want to have we want them to have the same opportunity.
Okay. Now I don't have to reference you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Richard Wall. Nice to see you again. Good evening to the board and members. I know most of you are, I'm sorry, Richard Wall, W-A-L-L. And before I begin, by way of setting my background, I'm a resident of Malvern Hunt. I live next door to Peter Fixler. I'm an attorney, a former prosecutor in Philadelphia, former attorney for the Office of the Inspector General. I'm a professor at Villanova of numerous courses. I'm also a professor here at Penn State. This is my place of work, and it's a privilege to be here. Green Fig is required to submit it. Oh, can I begin my time? I just want to do my introduction.
It is started. I started it when you started
I
speaking.
was trying to do my introduction. Could I have a restart, please? Green Fig is required to submit a new zoning application. A final approval of Green Fig's purported amended land development plan would eviscerate the due process protections that are enshrined in Section 908 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code and enforced by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Green Fig asserts that a prior zoning approval creates a vested right which cannot be vacated. This assertion is incorrect and in violation of Pennsylvania law and does not apply to the amended plan. In 2006, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court held that the doctrine of vested right is subordinate and inferior to the doctrine of void ab initio. The doctrine of void ab initio requires an ordinance to be vacated when due process violation occurs and the zoning procedure. The Supreme Court said it would be, quote, foolhardy to rule otherwise. Section 908 of the MPC establishes the procedural framework for zoning hearing boards and ensures a fair and structured adjudication of land use applications. Central to this framework is the protection of the right of interested citizens to inspect the documents, to assert standing, to cross-examine applicant witnesses, to object, to present rebuttal evidence, and challenge all evidence of the record. None of these due process rights are protected when documents are not available to the public for review and evaluation. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court stated procedures, quote, must be followed strictly in order for an ordinance to be valid. A violation of any of these fundamental rights is fatal to the entire zoning process. The Green Fig Amendment seeks to increase the structural footprint by 61%, relocate emergency generators, remove basements, and replace cooling towers. The documents and evidence in support of these changes were not made available for public inspection, nor entered into the prior record prior to the zoning board decision in 2021. This is neither fair nor structured land use adjudication. Rather, it is a direct violation of due process rights established in 908. Substantial and material modifications of an existing variance require a new application. As explained by the Commonwealth Court, quote, the final plan must be substantially the same as the previously approved plan. Only de minimis or minor deviations from the prior plan are permitted. In fact, the Commonwealth Court has held that a 6.5% deviation was not de minimis as a matter of law. Green Fig's proposed modifications are greater than 6.25% and far exceed the minor changes permissible under the de minimis standard. Therefore, and in closing, this purported amendment is an attempt to bypass zoning procedures in violation of our due process rights. Accordingly, Green Fig must be directed to submit a new application to the zoning hearing board. Thank you.
Just to repeat what Wanda, the court reporter, is saying, if you have a statement, it makes it much easier for her to do the transcription if you provide her the statement, or you can provide it to Brittany Carasella, who's, I'm sorry? You can email it to Brittany, and her information is on the Township website. Thank you.
Can I get my name for the record before you start the public comment, please? It's a long one.
Maybe.
Ginny Marcel Kurzek, Ginny.
Ginny, I'm sorry to stop you here, but we're giving preference to East Whiteland
It
residents
said
first.
at the discretion of the chair. Scott, can I go ahead and speak, please? If that's okay with everyone. I think your residents say it's okay, Scott.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Scott. Well, the residents think it's okay. Ginny Marcel Kurzlake, Ginny Marcille -Kerslake, and I'm a resident of West Whiteland Township. So good evening. You will hear tonight from many informed residents, including some of them experts, how this plan should be denied due to potentially devastating impacts to public health, safety, and welfare, as well as quality of life and place, and for additional reasons like we just heard. I'm going to focus my comment on the latter, and specifically your Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, also known as SALDO. First, your SALDO clearly states under Section 175-20E that, and I'm going to quote, modifications to or of an approved subdivision or land development plan shall be resubmitted and reprocessed in the same manner as the original plan. Therefore, this needs to go straight back to the very start as a new application. Second, this developer is attempting to amend a plan that appears to no longer be approved. And I'm going to walk you through that, okay? Bear with me. East Whiteland Board of Supervisors approved the final plan in August of 2024. Greenfig accepted this and its conditions on August 16th, 2024. According to your SALDO, Section 175-20B, the final plan was to be filed with the County Recorder of Deeds within 90 days. That did not happen. In order to file at the county, there was a $12 million financial security to be posted and a mechanics lien on the property to be settled as conditions of approval. These two things did not happen until January 13th and March 19th, 2026. So the required land development agreement and financial security agreement were finally signed March 19th of this year, and the final plan was filed with the County Recorder of Deeds on March 31st, 2026, a year and a half after the final plan. Bernadette, could Scott listen, please? Thank you. Please give me that extra time. The final plan was filed with the County Recorder of Deeds on March 31st, 2026, a year and a half after the final plan, not the required 90 days. But there is a provision in the SALDO that if the developer shows reasonable cause for not filing on time, the supervisors may re-execute the plan or authorize your solicitor to tell the county it has no objection to the late filing. So my question to the board is, did the board do either of these things? Did you re-execute the plan, or did you tell your solicitor it was okay to tell the county that you had no objection to the late filing in 2026?
Without researching all those dates.
I filed a right to know, and none of that was in the documents I received.
We did provide you with the recorded land development agreement.
You did, but you did not find me anything here to explain or to justify the late filing.
Right to know requests do not require explanations.
Okay, Bernadette, did you receive that from the supervisors in order to file this on March 31st, 2026?
I provided the land development agreement to the applicant probably
It took me a while to get it done. I forgot the date. It was sometime in 2026. It was probably in February or March.
The requirement is that it gets filed with the county within 90 days unless these special provisions are made. So you need to check that, because I believe that approval was filed. It seems that you either don't recall it or you didn't do it, Board of Supervisors. I hope you did not, because I don't know why you would choose to resurrect this expired approval. And if you did not do it, which I suspect you didn't, and that approval has expired, you should not even be entertaining an amendment to a plan that is no longer approved, and they no longer have a prior for this. And I'll just leave you with this. All three of you have great power in this, something that's going to have huge consequence to your residents. And you now have the opportunity and the obligation to do what's right. I request that you deny this application and let that be your legacy. Thank you.
My name's Carl Abramson. I'm an East Whiteland resident. I'm an electrical engineer with experience evaluating compliance for electrical generation facilities. I oppose the siting of a hyperscale data center in suburban municipalities, including East Whiteland. But that's not where I'm going. After attending the March 9th hearing, I was left with a fundamental question. Who are you going to call in an emergency? How are they going to respond? And who's going to pay for it? And I thought about that, and I've done some research. Based on my review, a hyperscale data center is more accurately a high-density energy use facility. We've been talking about air quality, noise, but we also have a situation here where there's a great deal of power being used within a relatively small space. The April 1st Chester Montgomery County Data Center Model Ordinance is a good place to start, because we do not have ordinances that apply specifically to what we're talking about here today. But it does not address key issues such as emergency preparedness, power sourcing, tenant accountability, and financial assurance across the full facility life cycle, including decommissioning. I know we've talked about it. It came up today, the decommissioning component. Given the scale of electrical and thermal risk, passive oversight is insufficient. The township must adopt proactive compliance monitoring, inspections, and enforceable penalties. This will require new administrative and emergency service obligations, including mandated inspections and monitoring. The township will need ongoing resources, staff, systems, and expertise, and these costs must be borne entirely by the applicant through binding agreements, not taxpayers. The township should also require direct financial compensation for community impacts. Finally, approval should be conditioned on guaranteed ongoing funding and clear enforcement mechanisms. If the township cannot confidently answer who responds, how they respond, and who pays for that response, then the township is not ready to approve this use. The one thing I also would like to mention is not specifically with regard to Green Fig or Sentinel, is that this is probably not going to be the last time that the township is confronted with this opportunity or opportunities like this. So preparing for it and taking care of what needs to be done, I know is on your calendar and of interest, and here are the reasons why. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kathy Shea. I live in the Arlo Apartments on Sweetsford Road down the road. And I also have a business in the township, Moonstone and Sage, located at 288 Lancaster Avenue. I'm asking the board to just respectfully deny this request. My analogy of what we're facing here is that the company submitted a plan for a parcel used the size of an envelope, needing only one postage stamp. They have conditional approval for that plan. Now they want to amend their application for a building the size of an Amazon package. That's different, is a bait and switch. That's considerable, and this package should not be in our township's precious green space. And now what they're doing with their threats is being a bully, trying to tell us if we don't do this, then we're going to get what we got the first time, which I find very offensive. I'm very concerned about the potential of us creating a Havana syndrome site. This might
Could you
sound
say
a
that
little,
again?
A Havana syndrome, Cuba, where people working in certain conditions, subject to certain sounds, have created certain neurological conditions. And standing here as a member and a fortunate person with Parkinson's disease that is highly impacted by environmental conditions, I'm standing here telling you that whatever the decibels say and all of those things that you're saying, that you could stand here and stand there, that all might be well and good, but I'm an example of what some of your other residents and I will be facing as a result of having this big power pack in our system. We are all energetic beings. Our body responds to energy, and how that energy is being pushed at us from various ways. And as the doctor said, the high notes, the low notes, it gets through our system, and it gets into our systems. It gets into our neurological system, all of our medical systems. And I'm asking you to consider that and think about the people that are right now suffering from these types of diseases that are affected by this, and the future of the children that are going to be potentially affected by this. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Fred Sluka. I live at 1011 West King Road, Melbourne. 1011 Sluka, S-T-L-U-K-A, and as Fred is in Frederick. So I have, first of all, a couple of questions for the Green Fig guys. So data center is going to have to draw a lot of power, and the data center is going to have backup generators in case power goes out. What does the data center do in between? Is there a UPS?
So for some applications have UPS, some don't.
Okay. Computer servers?
Yes.
Which is the major draw of power in this whole thing?
Correct.
So most of the facility basically has a UPS.
No, some servers have ride-through capability inside the server. They have 15 seconds of battery that don't require
So some have a built-in UPS, and some have an external UPS. A UPS is an uninterruptible power supply. It basically requires batteries so the servers don't crash between the transition from powering going out and the generators kicking on. Correct. So there will be batteries.
Correct.
What types of batteries will they be? Lead acid, lithium?
Multiple. VRLA is commonly used, valve-regulated lead acid. Lithium ion is used to the extent the fire inspector allows it. Mm-hmm. There's, it's all regulated by code and carefully reviewed by the.
So lithium-ion batteries are a lot cheaper than lead-acid batteries. I'm going to assume, unless you know otherwise, that they'll be mostly lithium-ion batteries.
We don't know yet, is the candid answer.
Okay. Lithium-ion batteries catch fire, okay? What I'm going to do now is run through the rest of what I have to say and a bunch of questions to you, and I want to just sort of queue up the answers for when I'm done, okay? Lithium-ion batteries catch fire. Laptops get hot and they catch fire. People have heard of this kind of thing happening. Cell phones, electric vehicles catch fire and they burn down houses by sitting in the garage unused when their batteries catch fire. Airplane, I took a flight out to Seattle recently. I was not allowed to carry many lithium-ion batteries in the plane with me. They had to be in my personal luggage where I could see them, and if there was a problem that people could notice that there was a fire. I was not allowed to check any into my checked luggage. They're not allowed to be in the hold of an airplane because they might catch fire. I was recently at the Lancaster landfill where they said they don't take lithium batteries. They don't want them in the landfill, but some of them slip through. And so they have 3 fires a month or so where a lithium battery got crushed by a bulldozer or whatever, a single lithium battery, and got hot and ignited and started a fire in the landfill that they have to put out. You can't put out a fire like that with water. You have to use special chemical foam because water makes lithium burn even more hotly, okay? So lithium batteries in general are a risk, right? So I want to know from Sentinel Greenfig, what is their plan to prevent a fire from the lithium-ion batteries? What is their plan to suppress a fire if one occurs? What is their plan to mitigate the spread of fire from one, they're going to have probably tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of individual lithium battery cell combined together. If one of those goes bad and ignites the others, what is their plan to mitigate the spread of the fire? What is their plan to fight fire, train the local fire department? What is their plan to contain a potential explosion from a one-way thermal reaction when one burning battery ignites all the rest of the batteries and you get thousands and thousands of degrees of heat and the entire facility goes up and it burns all the local diesel fuel stored online and it maybe turns into an explosion and knocks down all the houses in Melbourne Hunt before they have a chance to even burn, they just get blown up, okay?
Okay, Fred, I think can Josh answer
well,
those?
let me run through the list.
No, we're out of time for the questions pertaining. Josh, if you can answer those.
What is the plan to prevent the ignition of diesel fuel? What is the plan to prevent the ignition of a nearby gas line? What's the plan to contain toxic chemicals that are released from the
Fred, that's.
All right, Fred, please.
I'll address the high level and Nick can address the technical, but so these buildings have billions of dollars worth of equipment in them. As a result of that, they are insured to the highest standards by places like Factory Mutual, and they are protected to the highest standards by us. That includes multiple layers of smoke detection, including VESDA smoke detection, which is a very early sensitivity smoke detection, where when something starts even smoldering, releasing tiny particulates into the air, we sense it, we respond, we have staff that's there 24/7 monitoring all of it. There's another layer of smoke detection above that, and then there's 2 layers of fire suppression. All of that is built so that there are never any incidents, whether it's from batteries, from servers, from electronics, and if there are trained professionals around the clock monitoring a knock, sitting in front of screens, watching full time and doing rounds on every shift to make sure that these are the safest building. And they are safe to the degree that they can be insured to the highest degree, to the highest standards by Factory Mutual for this exact reason. And batteries of all sorts have been used in data centers, including lithium ion, for the last 15 years. And it's within the jurisdiction of the fire marshal. He has a right to interpret the code however he may interpret the code. He has a right to force us to put different protections in place, to put space between things, to prevent things, and we will work with him in that degree to make sure we're fully compliant. I don't know if there's any.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
So that is suppression, that is detection of fire. What about suppression? What about compartmentalization, that fire can't spread from one side to another?
Fred, I'm sorry. We got a line behind you.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
You've seen details of my questions in your email, so you know what
Yeah.
I have to say. Okay.
Hi. For the sake of record keeping for you, I emailed my comments to Brittany over there. For the sake of record keeping, I emailed my comments over there already. My name is Donovan Messer. I'm a resident of East Whiteland Township. I'm a cybersecurity professional. You can start my time. There's a combination of writing from before this meeting and during this meeting, so apologies for any lack of continuity. Starting simply, the new proposal proposed here today still uses water and is about half the size of the currently proposed plan? Would it also use half as much as water? Economically speaking, I struggle to understand the benefit of this to our township. The amended proposal mentions income numbers with a wide range with no real reasoning or proof behind them. Beyond this, Pennsylvania also currently gives generous tax breaks to data centers that will cost Pennsylvania around $2 billion in estimated revenue loss. I also see no projections on the job created, permanent or temporary, and based on the EPA paper handed out.
Could you slow down just a little bit?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just have a lot and I wanted to stay on the time. I see no projections on the jobs created, permanent or temporary. Based on the EPA papers handed out tonight, I also hold deep concern for the workers to be working on this site. This site could use up to 290 megawatts. In 2024, the entirety of Chester County was estimated to have consumed 6.1 million megawatt hours. This data center alone could consume roughly 2.5 million megawatt hours of electricity annually. I'm sorry. I tried to talk slower. I do apologize. All that to say, around 40% of the amount of electricity in Chester County consumed in 2024 could be consumed by just this one building for comparison. Your proposal online mentions funding all the improvements in purchasing generation to this power plant, but no specifics. Are these sources sustainable? What are the impacts on the communities where the power generation is restarting? This is also a Commonwealth issue, not just our township. PECO said it itself, adding a data center of this size is akin to adding an entire medium-sized city to an electric grid. Even if my personal wish of a data center not being built probably won't happen, I personally believe the 880,000 square foot design mentioned is much more workable considering something is going to be built. That said, do not hold this smaller plan over the township's head. This design being shown tonight shows it was always possible to design this. As the chairman said, these processes take time. Respectfully, I do not care about your customers, bottom line, or deadlines. I care about my fellow residents of this township. While I personally believe that this one-story plan is the least of the evils, this is not an act of goodwill. It's a poor attempt in acting like you care about East Whiteland Township. Thank you.
It's my understanding these people are willing to let me do my 15-minute presentation.
Just clap your hands if you're giving up your time.
Thank you. As I said, my name's Andy Schneider. I'm an attorney. I've lived in Malvern Hunt for 20 years. For the last month or so, I have spent every spare minute reading the municipality's planning code, case law, deeds, property transfers, easements, environmental covenants, and transcripts from quasi-judicial proceedings. I was all set to give you a legal explanation as to how and why you will be committing a legal error if you approve this plan. But after I attended the last Board of Supervisors meeting last week, it dawned on me that anything I say about the law, you're just going to defer to the various solicitors the township may employ. A solicitor from 2018, President Clumpini excluded, is a big part of the problem we're having right now. In recent meetings and reading transcripts, emails, and text messages that people have received from right to know requests, you can see some of our township solicitors spoon-feeding their witnesses and carrying their water, not you, not Ms. Kearney or Mr. Crotty. Take a look at slide 2. This is from a 2018 zoning hearing that kicked off this 8-year run of things. This slide is one of our lay people, zoning board officer neighbors, doing his darndest.
Mr. Schneider, we really can't see it. Do you have handouts?
Yes, I understand that, but we're looking forward and we can't see it on that.
I can mail it, email it to you. Yeah. I mean, were you able to see theirs?
Oh, you're good.
So what you see up there is a zoning hearing officer saying that the variance doesn't meet the standards of the law. He knew in the moment that the application, their predecessors in 2018, did not demonstrate substantial, serious, and compelling reasons for the variance. The zoning officer knew in the moment. But if you move to the next slide of that transcript, you have the township solicitor telling him that he can ignore the law because nobody is here to object. That transcript, you can ask your counsel, is what's going to help us win that land use appeal. More recently, one of our solicitors stood up at a meeting and scolded us and said the developer has vested rights. Now, you heard Mr. Wall, also an attorney and a law professor. He explained a little bit more about vested rights, and I sent a letter about that. But I haven't heard back in writing from our lawyers. I would think if there was a rationale supporting that vested right arguments, they could provide it to me. The following is not an insult, it is an element for the record. The Sentinel team is not acting in good faith. And an easy example of that happened at the last meeting. We had some really smart people talking about the sound problems this data center will cause. They had honest, legitimate, fact-based questions. The developer's attorney got up and said, there's a 30-day prison sentence if they violate the noise ordinance. Really? First of all, corporations don't go to prison. And second of all, that can only happen if they don't pay the fine. And that was the exact point of the commentator, that the Wall Street billionaire investors will do whatever is cheaper, pay the very, very modest fine or spend the millions to come into compliance, and do the math. Also at the last hearing, Sentinel was asked another very valid and important question about the chemicals that will be used or emanating from a bunch of massive air chillers. Rather than just simply tell us the name, they said, don't worry, it's non-hazardous. Only after some pushback by Senator Muth, who is behind me, did we hear that one of the chemicals is R513A. Why did it take that pushback from our senator? Get that answer? Probably because they didn't want us to use the Google machine and see what that says. Per Google, the hazardous characteristics are, in fact, low toxicity. But low toxicity is not non-hazardous. The physical hazards include liquefied gas under pressure. It's an asphyxiant, can cause burns, cardiac effects, inhalation problems. I believe Mr. Rubino likened it to a supermarket cooling system. Their data center clients will be happy to know that I have the paid version of ChatGPT. And it tells me, and I quote, "This is a really good and important question because the scale difference is enormous and often misunderstood in hearings." Gentlemen, when a developer comes into East Whiteland Township looking to develop a massive project while giving less than candid answers in the planning process, what kind of candor can you expect once they have their roots in our soil? We, the people in this audience, are your friends and neighbors. Stand with us. And if they threaten you or otherwise bully you, we will have your back. In Great Valley School District, we teach our kids to stand up to bullies, to not be bystanders. And that's what this amazing group behind me is doing. We're standing up for you and for ourselves. For the last month or so, I was very frustrated as I went through so many documents that have been revealed, the right to know requests. One thing's clear, there have been many failures within our government that have gotten us to where we are. But you know what? I'm the government. You guys are the government. We are all the government. And good governance requires vigilance and participation. We have failed ourselves to this point, but we can fix it. Tonight, with no votes from you, or in court. I'm not here to fight with the three of you. I've not seen any of your names on the overt mistakes of the past. Tonight, I'm here to push back against the developers who thought they could just come in here, fill out some paperwork, get approvals, and do whatever they want. I'm here to show you exactly why you need to stop listening to whoever is telling you that you need to approve this plan or that the old plan is viable. This development plan started out as a very small, locally funded data project. In 2018, a company named Whiteland Holdings went in front of our zoning hearing board and asked for a variance to build a data center on their property. That property can be seen on slide 4. As you can see, just above the yellow highlighted area is Malvern Hunt, which has 279 homes, and Malvern Crossing, which has 60 homes. That yellow property used to be parcel number UPI 42-3130. At that zoning hearing board, Whiteland Holdings asked the zoning board for permission to build a data center on 44 of those 72 acres. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The applicant called witnesses to testify as an expert. And you can see right up there, 44 acres, including the eastern section. If you can turn to the next page. And there's the question. From the same firm as Mr. Robinson, there he is. He's saying sufficient to accommodate the data center on 44 acres. And that variance was granted by way of order dated 2/26/18. Next slide, please. Again, 44 acres of their 70. 3 months after that, if you turn to the next slide, please. The lawyer for Sentinel, predecessor, not Sentinel, their predecessor, emailed a township solicitor asking to amend a portion of the ruling on that variance. They wanted to make clear that the data center was to be built on the center blue parcel, and that the red parcel was for the solar field, and the green parcel was reserved for future development. And so the zoning board agreed to make even clear what the data center was for, and they approved that for future development. Then at some point in the following year, 2019, that large yellow property was formally subdivided, as you can see in slide 9. That red section is 11 acres, the blue section is 33, the green section is 28, all plus or minus. But they didn't just ask for any 44 acres, they were very specific. They said, including the eastern sector of the property. Next slide, please. The red is 11 acres, and the blue is 33, which is where you get the 44. That eastern sector is the red section. If you note, it has a very interesting shape. That shape was formed because that was the section of the EPA Superfund site, which the EPA has defined as the quarry. Those 11 acres are where the toxins of the Superfund are buried. Since they cannot dig on that property, they plan to build a solar field there to provide electricity for their data center. And the plan was to build 2 buildings on the other 33 acres, which you can see in slide 11. And the oval in the sketch was to be reserved for future development, as requested. So there you have it. In 2018, they asked for permission to build a data center on 44 acres, and the zoning board approved it. Slide 12. At some point after that, the property was bought by Green Fig Land. In 2021, Green Fig Land went in front of the zoning hearing board and asked for some more variances. Again, unfortunately, the zoning hearing board granted more variances like they were giving out candy, despite the legal requirements that their own zoning hearing board cites. They noted, the reasons for granting a variance must be substantial, serious, and compelling. A party seeking a variance bears the burden of proving that unnecessary hardship will result in the variance is denied, and the proposed use will not be contrary to the public interest. Despite that tough burden, more variances were granted. Those variances were outlined in a letter by the township solicitor in the next slide. That's a 4-page letter from November 16, 2021. And nowhere in that document are they granted permission to go beyond the 44 acres permitted in the 2018 variance. Now, if you turn to the next slide at the bottom of the page, into page 2, variance is granted for a data center to allow additional building square footage for a new total of 1.86 million square feet. More building square footage does not mean more acreage. There's nothing in that variance that allows them to build beyond the 44 acres. If you turn to the next slide, March 25th, I sent a letter to the township solicitors explaining this, and I asked them to do their due diligence. Sunday evening, I was informed that this would be reviewed with you. Moving to 2024, The property is still owned by Green Fig, and at some point they had submitted whatever was needed to get to the next stage in the process. So they received the approval of their final plans to build a data center, slide 16. Now here's where the term vested rights comes into play that Professor Wall expressed. He and I agree on that. Any suggestion that Sentinel has unfettered vested rights is legally incorrect. And on March 31st, 2026, slide 17, I sent a 5-page letter brief to 2 of the township solicitors outlining my legal position on vested rights. I asked them to provide written responses by April 12th. One of the solicitors sent a letter saying it was not their domain, and I did not receive a written response as requested from the other, but I was told that it would be reviewed with you. If for some reason your solicitors are still going to insist that Sentinel has vested rights, they have to admit that those rights are not without limits. Sentinel can't just do whatever they want on that property just because they may have certain rights, can they? The 2024 approval was not carte blanche. They were not given permission to do whatever they pleased. Yes, they did get approval, but there was so much more to it. If you turn to the next slide, you can see the final approval was given and was approved with conditions. And approved with conditions is what's going to win the day for us. We, the people of East Whiteland, were willing to let them build a data center here with conditions. They expressly agreed to those conditions, yet they have not met those conditions and they cannot meet those conditions, and it is clear as can be. The condition that I will focus on is condition P, which can be found on page 5 of the 2024 approval, slide 19. It says, the applicant shall comply with the decisions of the East Whiteland Township Zoning Hearing Board from 2018 and 2021. So let's go back to see what it says in 2018 on slide 20. At the top, you have the language granting the variance to build a data center on 44 acres. On the left, you see their 44-acre plan. On the right, you see the latest amended plan that is before you. If you recall, they went out of their way in 2018 to amend the variance decision 3 months after the fact to make sure they noted that the data center was to be built on the 44 acres, yet somehow they dropped a massive building on that future place for future development without any approval from the township. The amended plan does not meet the conditions that they agreed to, and these plans must be rejected. There's more. There's more, and it's really easy. It's so basic. Let's look at slide 21, the variance that said they must comply with. It says, the proposed use and intensity thereof shall be consistent with the applicant's plans, testimony, and evidence presented at the hearing. So what was their testimony? That they must comply with. Let me turn to slide 22. In their efforts to get the 2020 variance, Mr. Ledane said, so we're putting an entrance on the Sweetsford Road, and we're not going to complete that entrance until after the construction, well, late in the construction, because we're going to bring everybody in for the construction through the back entrance, which is through Pico, right off 202. Mr. Ledane went on to explain the entrances in more detail, details that they must comply with because they agreed to comply with them. Slide 23. He said there'll be 4 entrances. They can come in through Valley Creek, and it can come in through Backton Hill Road, and that's on our 4th entrance is from the bottom coming up. So we have 4 entrances coming in there. Probably not a lot of that traffic is going to come in there. Most of it is going to come in off of Valley Hill, and there could be 20 people working on a shift. So the traffic is only going to be a concern during the construction period, and we're going to bring the construction traffic in from off of Route 30 and 202. Their amended plan only has 2 entrances, not the 4 that were required and promised, as you can see on slide 24. The green stars mark the Backton Hill Road entrance, which is the only one that exists, and the yet-to-be-built Sweetsford Road entrance. The red stars mark the areas where they promised entrances, but they do not exist. And at the latest hearing, the gentleman over there talked about the Valley Creek entrance, but they never got approval for that. So why are we still here? The plans do not match their testimony. They have not met the conditions of approval. You must reject the plans. some more testimony about a condition of approval that has not been satisfied, and this one's a monster. This also comes from Mr. Ledain's testimony at the 2021 hearing board. Again, this was something that was required. They agreed to satisfy. It's unfortunate for them, but it was not optional. They didn't get to call an audible, as they appear to have done. The next slide shows an exchange between a zoning board officer and Mr. Ledain from the 2021 hearing transcript. Could you move that, Brittany? And this is the zoning officer telling them what their requirements are. The applicant shall, and Ms. Kearney can tell you that's not optional in the law, it's a requirement, shall obtain a letter from PICO indicating that the existing electric substation will be sufficient to provide power to the proposed facility without any adverse impact on any other areas serviced by the station. Mr. Ledain said that's correct, and he asked, the zoning officer was asking him, you're in agreement with that? And Mr. Ledain said, yes, I am. There is another massive condition that has not been yet met. Last meeting I heard from someone from Sentinel talk about funding and or plans to upscale the PICO substation. And that's all fine if they decide to try again once they face an appropriate ordinance. But the condition that was placed on them, and they agreed to, was they needed a letter from PICO that the existing substation will be sufficient. The amended plans were submitted in December of 2025. I have not seen such a letter, and I'm highly certain that it does not exist. It seems that Sentinel has its own plans without regard for the conditions that East Whiteland Township placed on their approval, and they agreed to. If you look at slide 26, you can take a look at their plans. And when you zoom in on their plans, you can see they have planned their own substation. If the PICO substation has enough power, they don't need their own. They never had any intention of complying with the terms of the variances because they assumed nobody would be paying attention. And by the time they started moving earth, nobody would even notice. And certainly nobody would have the resources to hold them accountable, not even East Whiteland Township. To summarize, East Whiteland Township gave approval to Sentinel's 2024 plans with conditions. The three ginormous conditions that have not been met and cannot be met can be seen on the final slide. The amended plan violates the 44-acre restriction. The amended plans do not have the 4 required entrances, and they do not have a letter from PICO that their existing substation will be able to service their facility without affecting the rest of us. If, for some incomprehensible reason, this has not convinced you gentlemen to put an end to this, I respectfully request you spend a few hundred of the taxpayer dollars for an independent legal opinion from a law firm that is not entrenched in the day-to-day business and politics of East Whiteland Township. Thank you.
It's okay, you deserve a break. Katie Muth, M-U-T-H. I'm the state senator for Senate District 44, which is part of East Whiteland Township. I represent parts of 3 counties. Thank you. This data center project proposal phenomenon is quite interesting and terrifying all at once to observe and participate in. But I first want to give recognition and appreciation to such a well-informed group of residents that have taken the time to be thorough. And honestly, all of this should be publicly available. It's disappointing to hear right to knows have to be filed to get information. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for your due diligence and for caring about your community, because that's so important in a democracy that's functional. And every day we see that withering away more and more. I'll be very brief because I'm blown away by the previous presentation. It's quite interesting. And I am not a lawyer, but certainly learning a lot about land use. And there seems to be some repeat players in this game that I think you all need to be aware of when you are meeting people that are in the data center development realm. For example, Mr. Crotty, I don't know, you have a Sharpie made name tag, so I assume you were a last minute ad or just, I don't know, but I believe that I've seen you in Sugarloaf. Pennsylvania. So there's attorneys that seem to be, and I don't know that you are an attorney. I didn't know that you work for East Whiteland Township, so welcome to East Whiteland Township. But the attorney, Bernadette, nothing, no offense to you personally, because it's not you, but your firm represented Limerick Township while they cooked and wheeled and dealed some real doozies in some data centers. So I just, again, point out that as residents, being mindful that what we perceive as a conflict is not a conflict necessarily in the business world. Also, on contaminated land, repeat trend, many leaders nationally and at the state level have said that we should develop data centers on brownfields and Superfund sites, but notice the missing word in front of that is remediated brownfields and Superfund sites. So I am a resident of East Vincent Township, where we're seeing the same project proposal. Please let us build a data center on contaminated land. We're not really sure what all the things are there, but please let us dig up dirt right next to where people live. That defies common sense in a sentence. So to think otherwise and allow a developer, not just this one, there's nothing personal to Green Fig or Sentinel or whatever, is that it's science. And as policymakers, it is certainly my expectation, and I hold myself to that same expectation. I don't put out legislation that's not based on evidence, that's not biased or bought and paid for, or information that hasn't been proven by scientific research. And there is decades of scientific research to refute some of the slides that were presented earlier that were basically an insult to humanity in terms of public safety and human health harms, presented by all industrial development, not just data centers, but certainly hyperscale data centers. The low frequency sound comments, no offense, Mr. Fixler, I don't care if you can't hear the low frequency sound when you went on your field trip, unless you had somebody there measuring it and being a real expert in sound. Your subjective opinion isn't going to convince people who know that these things are harmful to human health. That's just fact. You don't have to agree with it. It's science. It's going to happen. Universal law will dictate to us. Even if you all violate the laws here, universal law always happens. There's always an outcome for actions, always. It's just a matter of when. And I also just want to touch on something that really is unfortunate, but is becoming a real thing in my last 30 seconds, whatever I have, I don't know, Steve, is emergency response. Today in East Vincent Township, right next to a proposed data center and brand new PA American Water plant, there was a chlorine release that was supposed to be small at the current PA American Water plant along the river. Schuylkill River Trail closed, homes had to be evacuated for 2 tons of chlorine. I don't know if that's small in the water industry, but I'm just saying it's 2 tons of chlorine. I don't know if you want to live next to a place that have chemical release, but I bring that up because the fire department didn't know the chlorine was there, and they didn't even know there was a house right next to the water plant. So when you think about emergency management, and you guys have great first responders here in East Whiteland, all of Pennsylvania needs to get their act together and realize that we have to expand emergency response to even manage what we have now in industrial development. And our first responders don't need to go into lithium battery fires that are incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to put out. So don't put people in harm's way. You have the legal authority to deny projects that actually bring harm to people. That's part of your job. So it's not just allow all land use, it's also to make sure you protect the public. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sid Gata, and I'm 12 years old, and I live in Malvern Hunt in East Whiteland Township. Personally, I'm a nature enthusiast, and I'm part of Stroud Water Testing Laboratory. I tested Valley Creek for road salt and forever chemicals. Valley Creek is already impacted in the growing population in the surrounding areas. I'm also a student of Willistown Conservation Trust, where I tested microplastics in our creeks. Currently, our creeks slowly changing with the pollution. What would happen when the huge data center is in play? More burden to the existing changes. As a kid, I run around the community and explore many things and play with my friends. And I try fun things in the community to do with my friends. We found so many animals living in our community, such as snapping turtles. All these animals thrive within pure environments where water and air are pure. I play games on my iPad too, and they meet data centers, but if you ask me or my generation, we want to live in a non-contaminated world. I don't feel that this data center is a useful tool to the Malvern Hunt community and the township. What would happen to the air quality, the water we use, and the noise we hear? Many people run, walk, and do many recreation on the Chester Valley Trail. What would happen when people think of the data center as a first impression on the township, county, or even state? Many people in the vicinity of the data center would probably get affected in their health and leave the community, making the market value of Malvern Hunt houses and others drop down and down, making it a ghost town. Many states in the U.S. have already made some laws of data centers hard to pass. So let's be among the many to reject the offer and care toward the people. I request all wonderful supervisors here to take a correct decision on our future. Thank you for this opportunity for allowing me to express my opinion.
We've got till 9:30. We've got a little bit of time. We are closing in on our time, so I will take 3 more questions.
Okay, thanks. Name's Jeff Kuntz. I live in Malvern Hunt, East Whiteland Township. Last name is Koontz. I'm here to speak on behalf of one of our neighbors, Dr. Sriram Krishnan, PhD, engineering PhD, on behalf of the acoustics. So this would be geared towards you, Doctor. Due to scheduling constraints, he couldn't be here. But so I'll read directly from the transcript that he wrote. What I am going to present reflects his independent technical assessment of the proposed project as it and its compliance with the township's noise ordinance. The township zoning code, please verify, is as it states in section 133-4, is 10 decibels above background noise or 65 decibels during the day and 60 decibels at night, according to the code. Both limits during the day and night must be met. The applicant only demonstrated compliance with fixed cap, not the background base limit, which matters most in residential setting at night. Breaking down the facts as they've been presented in comparison to the ordinance, the data that has been presented in different scenarios, the applicant's study predicts 51 to 53 decibels at the residential property line. I think that differs a little bit than what was presented earlier today, but not terribly far. The township's consultant measured background noise between 46 to 54 decibels. But those measurements were taken during the daytime and rush hour influenced by traffic. That is not representative of nighttime conditions. The ordinance recognizes that by setting separate daytime and nighttime standards, as I referenced before. The applicant did not measure nighttime background noise. So Dr. Krishnan did at the same location using the same methodology at 10 p.m. across multiple sites, across multiple nights. Those measurements showed a background level at 10 p.m. to be around 35 to 38 decibels. Under the ordinance restriction of no more than 10 decibels above background, that sets a limit of 45 to 48 decibels. Based on the applicant's study prediction of 51 to 53 decibels at the residential property line, the applicant's modeled noise exceeds the limit by 3 to 8 decibels. Is that a fair assessment in your professional opinion?
Sorry, it is not.
Okay. So that was the assessment that I read. The one question I do have for you all, my question would be on the air chillers, right? The air cooled chillers. Will there be plumes that come off those air cooled chillers depending on humidity and so forth? Will we see plumes from them at all? No.
No, the answer. The plumes are evaporated water that
Right.
come off the evaporative cooling towers in the existing vested plan. Air-cooled chillers do not produce anything visible.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Hi, my name is Dr. Srini Titali. SRINITETALI. I'm a medical doctor that lives in Malvern Hunt. I've been living there for the last 18 plus years. So again, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the hearing at the sound pollution here. Sriram, I'm representing what he wrote over here. The proposed facility would be continuous generating mechanical noise 51 to 53. What I wanted to say, though, was the World Health Organization has found that nighttime noise about 40 decibels begins to affect sleep. This is where my interest comes in as a medical doctor. It's very important for you all to notice that sleep disturbances can actually lead to cognitive disturbances, and the noise range is going to be in between 45 to 55 decibel range, right? So that's actually going to produce sleep disturbances and physiological stress. The effect on on health is anxiety and depression. Mr. Urbina, you're wrong about what you said earlier about the 55 decibels and that it's going to be blocked and it's going to be ambient sound and all of that. Although you're cutting down on the size of the building, it really is not going to help because that hasn't changed. So the other thing is, it's almost akin to any prisoner of war torture with a constant white noise. It's very important to know that. And I think you're also wrong, sir, again, about the learning issues in children. It has been shown that there are low learning issues in children, cognitive skills go down, and hearing issues leading to decreased concentration, sleep disruption. So all of these are so obvious. As a medical doctor, I'm telling you, I've been speaking about this for the last 2 months in front of the Planning Commission and in front of the Board of Supervisors, and again now. Thank you very much for the opportunity, but this is very, very important to really note. We're not just making it up. So please consider all of these before you make a decision. And I think we have just one more person over here. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, so the both of us have petitions, so we're going to go together. My name is Karen Fordyce. I'm at 1 Fairwind Lane in Malvern Hunt, and I stand before you tonight not as a single citizen, but as one person representing over 2,400 members of this community who've come together to sign the petition asking the Board of Supervisors to deny the amended application. We've gone over a million times what the changes are. It's obvious that they are substantial. But I'd also would like to remind the board tonight that residents have rights too, that in all honesty, I feel have been overlooked. Municipalities have full legal authority to deny land development when the land development will harm the public. The claim that all types of development must be allowed is a misleading statement that leaves out the MPC requirement for all local governments to make decisions based on the best interest of public and not the developers. I'm going to cut mine a little short, but all I'm going to say now is after Andy's astonishing information that we received tonight, FIG has not met 3 of the conditions in their amendment, and the board needs to do the right thing now since there's no way for them to move forward. Therefore, I ask you not to listen to just me, but over 2,400 voices that have signed the petition that I'll be giving to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sahasra Nersu, and I am a junior at Great Valley High School. Lots of discussion has been taking place surrounding the effect of this data center will have on the youth residing in the East Whiteland area, but not much discussion has involved youth perspective. Now, I cannot speak based off experience of a doctor, nor can I speak from the experience of someone like an acoustic engineer. But what I can speak on is how students in this area feel discouraged and underrepresented by this proposed development. Today, I'm here to speak on the behalf of many of my peers and fellow youth who want to have a say in this decision-making process that will heavily impact our lives. I have been living in Malvern Hunt for the past 13 years of my life and have grown up around the beautiful parks, trails, and surrounding ecosystems. When I first learned that a data center was being built, I could not help but feel voiceless. I felt saddened by the idea that adults who were supposed to encourage the prosperity of youth in this area failed to consider the drastic effect this data center would have on our everyday life. Even though my environmental knowledge spans only as far as the AP Environmental Science class I took my sophomore year of high school, one thing was still clear as day to me. Data centers are not built near residential areas. I noticed these mutual feelings among many people my age and started a youth petition that would provide a platform for kids to directly speak up against this proposed development. Even as people who have been exposed to technology from a young age, we are still adjusting to the incorporation of AI into our education and work systems, and there's no doubt that AI will only continue to play a larger role in our life. We understand that data centers may be necessary in this increasingly technologized world, we just don't want it right across our homes. And although these centers are a relatively new concept, there is abundant research that proves how data centers negatively impact local water systems, reduce air quality, strain electricity grids, create light and noise pollution, and make areas feel like huge industrial zones. Long-term effects are still unclear, and we will be left to grapple with the consequences. When I was younger, I used to bike around the same area that this data center is proposed to be built. I feel disheartened by the idea that kids younger than me will not be able to share that same experience. Instead, when they step outside, they will be overwhelmed by the increased heat, constant hums, and never-ending flow of traffic. I urge the board to reject the development of the data center and instead promote areas of green space and open land that can be enjoyed by all. We may be young, but this is our community. In considering youth voices in the decision-making process, you help protect the next generation. Thank you for your time.
We have time for one more question, and then we are being told that we need to begin to wrap up.
Really?
Please do. Please do. Jenny, we're not there yet. Okay, thank you. All right. Again, great questions, thoughtful. Let's please,
Yeah, sure. Shiva Capsi, SHIVA. Shiva is in Viva Las Vegas. Okay. Good evening. My name is Shiva Capsi, a resident of Malvern Hunt. I am a scientist discovering, researching, and developing medicines for cancer and respiratory diseases. I believe in science's power to improve and protect human life. Science also tells us not to build a hyperscale data center in the middle of a community. So what were the data centers when you approved the plan in 2018? They were to house CPUs, serving as a centralized cloud storage, or maybe enabling streaming with energy utilization in single megawatts. So what are they now? They are AI factories required to house GPUs and TPUs, serving the needs of AI generative training with the energy utilization in hundreds of megawatts, just like this one at 290. So we can't simply state that through a series of variances, it is okay to proceed from that to this beast. So let's look at the air-cooled chillers on the roof that they were talking about. These have a high energy demand and have a potential environmental effect due to the refrigerant leakage and release of gases harmful to the atmosphere. These chillers also release heat directly into the surrounding environment, contributing to the urban heat island effect. That is, it will take more energy to cool our house now. And not to forget significant noise from these chillers, as these chillers do utilize large fans and compressors. Where is the study that shows the environmental effect of refrigerant leakage, release of gases, and urban heat island effect? There are none. So this proposal also has a 68 backup industrial size generators, with each guzzling 160 to 200 gallons of diesel per hour. So what is a typical backup generator for a house use? 1 to 2 gallons. So imagine the impact on the air quality if you run even half of these, means let's say 34 generators, for 2 to 3 days during a brownout or a blackout scenario. I'm not talking about every day, or at least during the brownout and the blackout. So the air quality index is a widely used system for communicating air pollution levels for the public. So the AQI is calculated based on the measurements of key air pollutants, such as the PM2.5 particulate matter, black carbon, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen oxide. These are the pollutants that these generators will be emitting. So one pollutant of particular interest is the PM2.5, often called the lung-penetrating fine particles. Science shows beyond doubt, even if you Long-term exposure below the current federal standard increases the risk of heart failure, stroke, asthma attacks, respiratory infections, and premature death. As a scientist involved in developing medicine, one of the FDA requirements while developing an inhaler, such as the dry powder inhalers that we use for asthma for children, is that we need to control the particle size of the medicine to 1 to 5 microns. Give me 30 seconds, please. Why? Because these particles can penetrate the lungs, so that drug can be effective. So the same particle size ranges are the ones that these generators would emit, but would contain harmful elements. So as the philosopher Virilio, French philosopher Virilio said, when you invent the ship, you also invent the shipwreck. So the shipwreck of this beast, liquid cooling leaks, noise pollution, air pollution, heat generation, groundwater contamination is all unknown. So, but we all know shipwreck exists. So a substantial change in a data center requires the assessment of this shipwreck. So the Board of Supervisors must demand a new application today because East Whiteland deserves better. Thank you.
That concludes it. Kelly, would you collect everyone's comments that are there and we can
Sure.
get them over to
But
Brittany?
one thing, I thought that because of the Sunshine Act, that you have to hear us say it live, maybe not tonight, but at the next meeting. Can we speak our comments live then? I think everyone here has some important things to
Okay,
share.
I'll tell you, Kelly, I'll tell you what. Brittany, would you go get the names of the people that are standing in line at the next meeting? They will lead off with their comments. Okay, is that fair?
That's fair. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry? Yes, we're done. Yes.
And I don't know, because we are running. Brittany, turn this off. I don't know if the applicant wants to respond to anything briefly, or we'll just. No. What's that? Yeah, or we can. You want to provide it at the next meeting? Go ahead. So at this point, you can decide if you want to hear further comment, you want us to prepare.
And just to let you know, the discussion here is what the next steps are, and our solicitors are debating it.
Not debating it, discussing.
So, what are the options?
I think at this time we would continue it. It's going to, are we short than April 21st? Potentially 21st.
Okay, so.
I couldn't. What was the question?
Is April 21st term date?
We're going to consider the amendment.
Term building
From
Westchester.
next steps.
Okay. At a time, is there a certain time?
Yeah,
Six? Okay, so, hey, folks, we want to make sure everyone knows the next steps before they leave. So, okay, currently, the schedule is to come back on April 21st, so a week from today, at 6 p.m. Westchester University. It'll be put on the township's website, and that will hear the additional public comment, and the board will take any other action it may deem appropriate at that time. So under the law, we have to have a written decision that's ready. It can't just be on the fly. It's got to be something that sets forth the reasoning of the board, any which way it might go, and then that's issued, and then anyone who disagrees with it can take an appeal to the Chester County Court of Companies. So that's why you can't just do it on the fly tonight.
So what's in front of us is what the applicant, excuse me. So what's in front of us is what the applicant has submitted.
Will you calm down?
What's in? We couldn't find a venue, Jenny. Thank you for your comment there. What's in front of us is a new amended plan for the supervisors to consider and to consult with our staff with. We have also listened to all your comments and we'll take them into consideration. We will have another meeting on April 21st, and I believe we will have either a decision to approve or decision to deny. That's correct.
We're not going to do this. We are not.
Jenny, we're not going to get into this. We're just telling you the steps. This is Jenny. This isn't a yelling match.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you for your
We're ending
comments.
the evening now because Penn State has indicated to us we have to be off their campus. Thank you.